What's up? Ghost Fictions is here, and we're back again. This is a story where Izuku was abused and got the abilities of the Six Paths Sage. Izuku Yagi was a child left alone by the world for his quirklessness. Alone, beaten, hurt, neglected, abused, suicide-baited, lonely and with nothing. There was nothing in the world for him, so what stopped him from ending it all? Because of a few people. The people he trusts with his heart. The people who are his true family. And through them he would change the world to peace once more and be the guide, but for how long could he last? But before we start, please consider subscribe to the channel and give this video a like. Don't forget to check the description for more informations, and support the amazing author Big Boy Eisen 125 for writing this story. Now, let's get into the story. Izuku Yagi was looking down from the rooftop of his school. Tears once fell from his face, no longer did. He simply did not care anymore. He was ready to end it all. Right there and then, but a gentle, humble and wise voice stopped him. Izuku Yagi is a short boy for his age group, which is 13. His round face was framed by a short mess of untamed blonde hair, which sticks at odd angles around his head, casting noticeably dark shadows onto itself. His eyes are large and somewhat circular. Their irises is a bright blue, which can be very watery, and are usually stretched quite wide, giving him an innocent, energized appearance. He has a set of 4 symmetrical freckles in a diamond formation on each cheek. One who dares take his life shall bring ruin on the world, the one who change it shall perish, and the one who shall change the flow of the world shall fall. That will happen if you pick this. Izuku turned around to see an old man. The old man was a tall and pale-skinned man, who had deep wrinkles and a strong jaw-line even for his elderly age. He has spiky, shoulder-length, pale brown hair, with a chin-length, braided lock hanging in the front of his face of his front left ear. He also sported a goatee, which tapered down to his waist. He had a pair of horns-like protrusions extending from either side of his forehead. He had a red ring-like eye marking at the center of his forehead, and 2 ring-like purple eyes. He wore a white, full-length kimono with a pattern of 6 black magatoma around a high collar, beneath which, he wore a necklace which was also made up of 6 black magatoma. On the back of his kimono was a larger, black ringed eye marking a pattern and having 9 black magatoma arranged in 3 rows of 3 beneath the black ringed eye. "Who are you?" Izuku asked in a broken and sad tone. The old man gave a small frown at the boy. "I am here to give you a chance at life, a chance to become a hero," he said with a kind smile at the end, to show that he was truthful. Izuku's eyes went as wide as horses. "You can make that happen?" he asked, shouted at the man, who nodded. The old man held out his hand and Izuku, without thinking, took it, to then be transported to his mindscape. Izuku's mindscape. Izuku woke up in a room that looked like a sewer. In the middle was the old man standing there with a big smile. He gestured for Izuku to come to him, and he did. "Before we continue, I shall tell you my name. My name is Hagoromo Otsutsuki, the Sage of 6 Paths, creator on Ninshu and the first Jinchuriki," he told Izuku, who nodded, while having a very confused face. "I shall also introduce you to my sons and my brother so that we all and give you the power to make this world come to peace," he said while Izuku nodded dumbly. Particles of blue light came together as it formed a person. He was another tall, pale-skinned man with hairless brow ridges and white hair, which was long and reached his waist. His bangs were short, hung to the left side of his face with a chin-length lock which hung to the right side of his face. He also had small, horn-like protrusions on his forehead and had milky white eyes. He wore a full-length kimono with a pattern of 6 black magatoma around a high collar and dark pants. He also had a dark crescent moon representing Een mark on his left palm. The blue-haired man looked at them and smiled kindly towards them. "Hello, Ni-san and?" He looked at the younger boy, who said his name to be Izuku. "Hello, Izuku. My name is Hamura Otsutsuki, the man who lived on the moon, or the shinobi on the moon. However you want to say," he said with a kind smile, while the boy nodded. Hagoromo looked at his brother with a smile before talking. "Hamura, you already know why I have summoned you, right?" the older one said while the white-haired male nodded. He understood already. "So Izuku, I am here to give you my Dojusta of the Byakugan and Tensigen. They are both very powerful, and you will promise that you will use my power to bring world peace," he told him, and he vowed he would before Hamura put his left hand to his eyes, putting chakra into them and sending his dojutsu over. Izuku's eyes went from the light blue to milky white, a sign of having the 2 dojutsus. His eyes though changed back to their original light blue. Hagoromo put right his hand on his forehead. He put in all the chakra he had, all the Kekkei Genkais passing into him, with his little brother as well, giving him the sun and moon crescent on the plan of his left and right hand. The two older men stopped infusing their chakra, and moved their hands away as Izuku had changes. His blonde hair was more pale, as so was his skin. His hair fell down from being all messy and untamed to normal. His eyes can become milky white, and his face becoming more stern. His eyes also weren't as large anymore and were like hammers. Izuku looked into the water below and saw himself. He smiled. He already liked the changes. Then two more shaka flames erupted out of the ground. One side of the room darker, and the other lighter. The darker side had formed a male with long brown hair and a long cylinder with two locks wrapped in bandages framed either side of his face. His eyebrows were cut short, a sign of nobility, and dark onyx black eyes, with had blue markings around his eyes, which were turned up at the corners. He wore a high collar, light-colored kimono held closed together by a dark slash. The collar of the kimono was adorned with magatoma, and under his kimono, he wore a black, full-bodied suit underneath. The lighter formed a male with spiky brown hair with two locks, which were wrapped in bandages framing either side of his face. He possessed stern facial features. He wore a blank forehead protector around his forehead. He also wore a light-colored kimono with magatoma adorned around the collar. The kimono was held closed by a dark slash, and underneath his kimono he wore a black, full-bodied suit. The dark-eyed one looked around, and spotted the three. "Why have we been called, father?" he said while seeing the small blonde boy. "And who are you?" "Hush, Indra. This is Izuku, me and your uncle's successor for this time period and the one to bring peace," his father told him while patting Izuku on the shoulder. "So you're the one father likes to talk about. I am Indra Otsutsuki, the first Uchiha and creator of ninjutsu," he said, and then closed his eyes but nudged his brother. "Oh right. I am Ashura Otsutsuki, the first Senju and Uzumaki," he said with a big smile, and Izuku already liked him the most. "So I think it is time for you two to give your gifts to him then," Hagoromo said, and Indra went to Izuku while looking him up and down. He was making sure this boy was worthy. "Well then, I gift you with the power of the Uchiha clan. Our eyes and our dojutsu, the Sharingan. There are 5 levels and only father can awaken them for you straight away, but that would be too risky for now. For now you have the one Tomo Sharingan." He then infused his chakra into his eyes, and Izuku felt the difference in these ones. It hurt a lot, but he gained it. "Okay, so I am going to give you the body of the Senju, and the chakra pool of the Uzumaki, and also the chains," Ashura did with enthusiasm. He placed his hand on Izuku's heart, and chakra flowed through. This one empowered Izuku's body and gave him more physical attributes, and chakra flowed more and deepened. "Wow," was all the boy said while Hagoromo nodded. "Okay, so we have a training plan then," Hagoromo said. "Seeing you will be here as your body will adjust to your newfound power, we must train you inside here for now. I will teach you about the history of the shinobi world and before it during our time, and also how to use your Kekkei Genkais. Indra will teach you how to use your Sharingan and how to master Jutsu hand science. Hamura will teach you history along with me and how to use the Tensigen and be a Kugen. And finally Ashura will teach you Kenjutsu with Indra and how to use your chakra chain." She finished, and Izuku agreed. Outside Izuku's mindscape, Mustafa, Izuku's school, 540. A sleep-deprived man was jumping across building to building in search of his nephew who didn't come home. He was going to his school to see if he was still there. This man was Shota Aizawa, or more known as Ursahead. Shota is a slender and tall, pale-skinned man with messy, shoulder-length black hair that hangs in front of his face, and often, half-opened eyes. He usually has a worn-out and fatigued appearance. His facial hair remains unkempt, and his eyes almost always look tired and flat. He sports a ragged black outfit that consists of a black long-sleeved shirt and matching black pants that tuck into his boots. He also wears a utility belt and his signature scarf at all times. He hides a pair of bright yellow goggles underneath his scarf for when he needs them in a fight. Aizawa was nearing the school, and something told him to go to the roof. He didn't know what, but he went, and found his nephew on the ground. He rushed over and out a hand to his forehead. Warm, very warm. He also saw that his body started to change, and he thought about the possibilities. He called someone who would know more about these things, and that being Recovery Girl. A old lady's voice came through his phone while the sleep-deprived cat lover just sighed. "I found Izuku, except I think he is awakening his quirk, or something," he said boredly while he heard a gasp through the phone. She asked and he agreed. There is also something else only you can do here, so I will let you deal with it, he told her while placing Izuku on his shoulder. And with that they needed the call as Aizawa got ready to go to his workplace. He was now going to take Izuku there while he didn't even know a bit of the truth. Unknown world. Such powerful chakra comes from Earth. It hasn't done that in such a long time. Well, it reminds me of our chakra, a blue-haired woman said, looking towards the direction of Earth. Looks like Earth will be reminded of the power of the Otsutsuki clan. Aizawa reached the school and sighed, wondering what he could be Izuku's possible quirk. He entered the building and went off to medical room, where Recovery Girl is stationed. It was a long walk seeing how big UA is, but he found it relaxing as memories passed by him. Him holding Izuku reminded him of his dead friend, Oboro Shirakumo. Aizawa didn't even realize he let out a few tears as he remembered it all and the sacrifice his friend made, so he would become who he is today. The only thing he had as a reminder was his goggles and his utility belt. The same yellow color he would used, and the goggles belonged to his dead friend. Oboro Shirakumo was a tall boy of average stature with light blue, wavy hair that was swept back to flow upwards above his head, two shorter, ear-length tufts left hanging downwards to frame his face. He usually had an expression of excitement, possessing a large, teeth-bearing grin and semicircular, inward-tilting blue eyes that were often squeezed shut. He also had a rectangular bandage over his nose. Aizawa then felt a hand on shoulder and saw his best friend, Hisashi, holding it. I can tell what you're thinking about, Aizawa, he said gently without his quirk, something he did when it came to this subject. Hisashi Yamada, or more commonly known as Present Mike, is a tall, slim man with long blonde hair, which he wears spiked upwards in a large tuft behind his head, and a small brown mustache. He has rectangular eyes with concentric greenish-yellow pupils, and he is almost always seen with a large smile on his face. His hero costume consists of a black jacket with a very tall collar, upturned and complete with studs, and matching black pants and knee-high boots. He sports tan shoulder pads and a red belt and elbow pads, all studded, and black fingerless gloves. His neck is always obscured by a directional speaker which he uses with his quirk. He always wears a pair of headphones with the word Hage written on the headband and a pair of orange-tinted shades. Is it that obvious? The black-haired man said, and Hisashi nodded in response. You only cry when it is about Oboro or your mom, the usual loudmouth said. And why do you have a kid with you? This is my nephew, Izuku Yagi, he told his friend, who looked on shocked. He is Tashinori's kid, he shouted, and Aizawa's eyes glowed red as he shut up. Yeah, and he has just awakened his quirk, I think? He added the last part as a question while Yamada just sighed. You and kids, he said, and walked off while Aizawa stood there. He thought, was that an insult? He then realized why he was there and took off to Recovery Girl's office. Japan, Mustafa Ue, Recovery Girl's office, 7:45. Aizawa entered the room to see the old hero waiting for them. Shuzenji Chio, or more known as Recovery Girl, is a short, elderly woman with gray hair styled into a knotted bun. She has a small nose and eyes, which are two dashes, and a long mouth with defined nasal labii folds. She wears a doctor's lab coat and a dress with yellow and red vest-like designs on either side, two yellow buttons, and a belt with a pink R-shaped buckle. She wears pink boots and has a helmet around the sides of her face, a purple-tinted visor joining it over her eyes. In addition, she walks around with a cane designed like a syringe. Finally you arrive. I thought you had went to your sleeping bag again, she said with annoyance, and he just rolled his eyes. Okay, but this building is a nightmare to get around sometimes, he told while placing Izuku on the hospital bed. Yes, I know. She sighed before she checked Izuku. She first took a bit of blood to see if a quirk would, which would take few minutes, pop up, but go both of their shock, nothing happened. He was still quirkless. What in all heavens? She said while doing a test over and over again. Get Nizu. He probably knows more. Aizawa then called the principal. Japan, Mustafa Ue, Principal Nizu office, 7:56. Hello, this is Principal Nizu. How may I help you? A happy voice came from the mouse, dog or bear. Nizu is a short man who appears to be a possible combination of a dog, mouse and bear, which would make him a chimera. He has the head of a mouse with circular black eyes, a large scar over his right one, relatively rectangular shaped ears with pale pink inside, slanting outwards on the tip of his head, and an elongated muzzle with a small round nose. His fur is white and large dog-like paws with pink pads and a thin tail. He sports a white dress shirt, a dark red tie around his neck, a black double-breasted waistcoat, and matching dress pants. He wears a orange lace-up sneakers with incredibly thick laces which seem to be quite large on him. Nizu, this is Aizawa. We need you at Recovery Girl's office. It's something to do with Izuku. Aizawa told Nizu, who was shocked. Izuku was the name of Toshinori's boy after all. I'll make a quick call before I come by. Aizawa then thanked him and ended the call. Now then, Toshinori. It seems your son might need you more than ever. Back at Recovery Girl's office. Nizu said he had to make a call before he gets here. Aizawa informed Chio, who nodded before showing him a picture. That is Izuku's inside of his body. He seems to have some sort of new veins in his body. She told him, and Aizawa looked and saw that many were located at Izuku's eyes. Strange, he said as he looked at the clock. If anyone should know them, it has to be Nizu, he said to himself while looking at Izuku. Izuku's mindscape. And that was how chakra spread through the world and how me and my brother took down our mother, he told Izuku while the boy looked stunned. Everything he has just learned was shocking. Ni-san, maybe I should start his taijutsu training? Hamura said to his brother, who nodded, thinking it was a good start out of everything. Okay Izuku, I want you to focus blood and chakra to your eyes. That way the Byakugan can be activated and we can start with the gentle fist. Izuku nodded and there to do as he was told. He has learned chakra control but never tried with his eyes. This took him a bit, and so he thought about a hand sign and did it, activating his Byakugan. Izuku could see nearly 360 degrees, while also seeing the other four's chakra network. It was beyond imagination, but he couldn't hold it for long, and his eyes had to get used to it. Hamura smiled and then got into the stance as the gentle fist stance. He spent the time teaching it to Izuku and helping where he needed it. He had got the basics down, but it was still hard. Izuku rested as he got his energy back. If he was in his mindscape, which is like a year and a day in there, he was able to still run out of energy. Hagoromo looked at the boy with a smile until he felt a different chakra signature outside of the mindscape. He thought quickly and Hamura sensed it too. It looks like your training will have to be more extreme, Hagoromo said, and the two brothers finally senses it. It would appear that an Otsutsuki clan member is heading to Earth. We must get ready. Izuku got up and then looked at the four as Hagoromo sighed. It looks as if I might have to give you a few more teachers, Hagoromo thought to himself. Outside Izuku's mindscape, Recovery Girl's office. Nizu finally entered, looking around and seeing the two others. He was confused until his was informed. To say that Nizu was shocked was an understatement. He was beyond confused. Never in his life has he ever learned of this in his life. I don't understand what you mean. I have never heard of anything like this before, he told them, and they were all getting a headache over it. In space, this chakra only gets stronger as I wait. She giggled. I can finally get the challenge I have wanted. Her chakra exploded out of her as her face became on of excitement. This is going to be the best thing ever to happen. I can't wait. She darted off to Earth with full intention to get what she wanted, with a crazed smile plastered on her divine features. In Izuku's mindscape, Izuku looked on in shock as Hagoromo had summoned 9 beings to help Izuku in this battle to come. You remind me of Naruto. The deepest voice came out as Izuku looked on as he saw the massive fox. Izuku looked on at the giant fox in all its glory. The giant fox, radiating an aura of death and despair but suppressed because of Hagoromo. The fox has red-orange colored kishin with black fur around his ruby-red eyes that stretch to his ears, and 9 long swiping tails. He has the upper body of a human, complete with thumbs on each of his clawed hands. He is the size of mountains, which he towered over a few, and the largest of the tailed beasts. The one with 8 tails is an Ushi-Oni, once with 4 long horns, but the 2 right ones were blown off with a tailed beast bomb, and the 2 right were permanently sliced off, similar to that of a Jacob sheep. He towered over large rock formations, dwarfing entire forests and buildings. He has the muscular upper body structure, with a hunchback like an American bison, elbows with spiked protrusions, and hands with thumbs on them. He doesn't have hind legs, instead having 8 tails, which resemble the cephalopod arms of an octopus. The bug one had the stem of his tail green, as the wings were orange and came off the stem as 7 insect wings. His eyes were covered by helmet-like skull, from inside of which an orange glow can be seen. He also has spoke protrusions and a row of slits on his shoulders. His body was covered in a blue armor, with parts of it green on the underside. His head had 2 pincers with 3 parts of its face, covering a mouth full of sharp teeth. On the back of his head, it has a large pair of sectional horn protrusions. The one with 6 tails was enormous white, with a light bluish tint, bipedal slug with stubby arms, feet, and long 6 tails. She has 2 prominent tentacles, which are her eyes, and hole-like openings for a mouth. Her whole entire body is covered in a thick, slimy substance. The proud-looking one was a white horse, but with a dolphin head. She has 2 pointed long horns and 3 shorter horns in front. The ends of her horns, hooves, and her 5 tails are tanned, with some tanner flowered spots before the tanned horns and hooves. She also had red marking under her dark blue eyes. The one with 4 tails was a red-furred and green-skinned monkey, with a body build of a gorilla. His eyes were yellow irises and white pupils, spike-like protrusions were along the length of the 4 tails, elongated blunt fangs, and 2 long horns curving upwards on its forehead, like a crown. In his mouth he doesn't have a tongue, but has an dime volcano-shaped opening. The large turtle had a crab-like shell, spikes all over his body, and 3 shrimp-like tails. Under his shell, he had red muscle-like tissue. He had human-like arms and hands, but no hind legs. His face is concealed between a large forehead and lower jaw, both of which have spikes. His eyes were red with crimson pupils and his right eye was constantly shut. The fire cat was a 2-tailed cat similar to a Bakaniko, and is completely engulfed in flames, which are blue and black. She had heterochromatic eyes, the right one being yellow and the left being green, similar to an odd-eyed cat without pupils. The sandy brown-colored tanuki, with black curse marking over his face, body and tail, being the one-tailed beast. He had a jagged, concave mouth with no tongue, and the pupils of its eyes are black, with yellow irises and pupils, that each take shape of a black 4-pointed star with 4 black dots around it. The bison-octopus hybrid gave a friendly smile towards the boy. "Well, hello there. Sorry for his attitude." "Hey!" the fox shouted in anger. "I am guessing there is a reason for us being called father," the bug one said to Hagoromo, who nodded. "Yes, Komiai." The bug one was now identified as Komiai, looked at Izuku and felt his chakra. "He has the chakra of father and also others. Is he your successor, father?" "Yes. Izuku over there is me and Hamura's successor, and the new child who will bring peace to the world. A Otsutsuki clan member is coming to Earth, and only he will be able to fight them. So I asked you all to please allow this boy to become your Jinchuriki." Hagoromo told them, and they all nodded and agreed with the fact that if their father trusted him, and so shall they. "Now Izuku, this will give you more stamina and chakra pool will grow massively. I shall tell you them all. The one with the 1 tail is Shikaku, the next is Matatabi, then Isabu." He pointed towards the tailed beasts and Izuku nodded and waved at them with a smile. "Hello?" he said with a big smile, and Matatabi already liked him and pinched his nose, which annoyed Izuku. "Then the next 3 are Son Goku, Koko, and Saiken." He pointed towards the 4, 5, and 6-tailed beasts as they all said hello, and Izuku found Son Goku's for comfy. Hagoromo chuckled at his childish nature but continued. "And the last lot is Komiai, Gyuki, and Kurama." He pointed to them, the last 3, and he gave a smile to them all, and he found Komiai really cool. Gyuki was strict, but he didn't mind AMD Kurama. Well, he got himself the nickname Angry Old Fox. Hagoromo chuckled at Izuku's actions but called him over. "Now Izuku, you get new powers from them. Shikaku shall improve your magnet release and make it more power. Matatabi shall give you better reflexes to make them cat-like moves that shall improve your taijutsu, and the ability to use blue flames. Isabu shall give you better control of water release and to be able to control coral. Son Goku shall make your lava release the best it can be and increases the damage you can do. Koku shall make swift release even better and also improve your agility. Saiken shall allow you to use bubbles and corrosive acids. Komiai shall allow you to have a pair of wings that you can use and make you to use bugs for battle or collect intel. Gyuki will give the ability to use ink, and Kurama shall allow you to sense negative emotions." After he told Izuku everything, the poor boy just stood there dumbfounded, confused and shocked, which made the old man think he overdid it. "I think you should try to explain in chunks, then all out of the place," Indra said while avoiding the glare of Kurama. "No, I am fine, just processing," he said before taking it all in. "There is no way I am not becoming the #1 hero, believe it." "Ashura, you gave someone else a stupid catchphrase again," Indra shouted at his brother. "Well, at least I don't make people addicted to tomatoes," He shouted back as they had their usual argument. Well, let's get this started, Hamura said. Your body should fully adapt it in 5 days, giving us 5 years. That shall give you the time you need to train and get ready for however this threat is. Yeah, and then I will bring the world to peace. Outside Izuku's mindscape. I am here to see my son. A loud booming voice entered Recovery Girl's office. There stood All Might. Japan wasn't always governed by heroes. It was once a war between heroes and villains, with no clear winner. Those who became heroes were told that they would have a low chance of survival, so their numbers were very few. Only the ones with the courage to do this task did it, but they all perished with only 2 known heroes that survived: Gran Torino and Recovery Girl. But this all changed one day. A hero with a smile that brought hope to others came to the scene. He single-handedly dropped crime in Japan. His catchphrase being, "I am here." Children would grow up saying these words. Of course, his greatest achievement was taking down the biggest villain of that era, All for One. An evil so vile that even the pits of hell were disgusted. The complete opposite of the hero who ended his rule. All for One was a name feared and everyone knew it, but thanks to the hero, he was turned into a myth and forgotten. The hero was regarded as the symbol of peace, All Might. The #1 hero of the world. But the one thing that he feared was his family, especially his son who was born quirkless. So in hopes of protecting them, he left them, so he didn't bring attention to them, but it would appear that he needed to a dad once more. Japan, Mustafa, UA, Recovery Office, 9 p.m. All Might stood over his son while looking down with regret. His son was probably in a coma, and if something attacked him, then he gotta have done something to protect him. All Might is a very large man, with an equally muscular and well-defined physique, resembling a Western comic book hero. He had chiseled features on his face with a strong jawline, pronounced cheekbones, and busy eyebrows. Apparently the boy was found like this on his school's roof by Aizawa. The old hero told to the tall man who saw what was going on. We thought his quirk was going to awaken, or it awakened because of his changes, but we have no idea of what it could be. It could well and truly be the next stage of quirks, she said as the hero sat by his son. Why did he stay after hours? All Might asked her, and she didn't know. I don't know, Yagi, but you better go to Inko about this. The old woman ordered him, and he nodded quickly. I'll call her right now. He quickly left the room and called her, but he did not know that this would be the final moments he would ever consider Inko anything. Toshi, how are you? He heard her voice, and one thing that came to mind was why she didn't sound sad or anything. Know the time, Inko. Our son. We only have a daughter, though. All Might stood there as those words alone made him realize what the life his son went through, just like his childhood. Inko, I will say this once. His voice no longer having its happy tone to it, but a serious and deadly tone. Our son, Izuku, is in hospital at UA. He told her, and he got an answer he hated the most. Toshi, why do you care for the quirkless disgrace? Though without a second passing, he crushed the phone in his hand. He hadn't been this mad since the last time he fought All for One. He walked back to the room with just regret, anger, and disbelief painted on his face. You look like you could kill someone right now, Recovery Girl said with a questioning expression. I need Nizu right here. All Might told the old woman, who was now intrigued. I am guessing she said something that got you mad, Chio said as she looked at Izuku. Sometimes his body changed slightly or had a reaction. She would always try to figure out why but couldn't. Inside Izuku's mindscape, first year. Izuku had made progress in the weeks that flew by. He had always trained and never needed to sleep, but still rested after training. His weekly routine was simple. Monday, study the history of Nishu with Hagoromo and Hamura. Tuesday, learn more of how to use the Byakugan with Hamura. Wednesday, Indra's training, which was more like torture. Thursday, Ashura's training and learning how to use wood release. Friday, learning with one-tailed beast for 2.5 hours. Saturday, learning the 5 basic elements with all 4 Otsutsuki. Sunday, rest. It was nice for him, and he felt the effects of the training. He could hold the Byakugan for 10 minutes, had 1 2-tomo Sharingan in his left eye, with the right eye having 1 tomo. His ninjutsu was mid-chunin level, his taijutsu was low jonin, and his kenjutsu was high chunin. He had also been able to use magnet release thanks to Shikaku, lave release thanks to Son Goku, and swift release thanks to Koku. He has also learned that his Byakugan was 3 times stronger than what humans would have thanks to Hamura being a Otsutsuki clan member. We now see Izuku clash his sword with Indra's sword. Even though he was not as good as Indra, he was able to use other ways to help him in his training. He used swift release to help him react and strike faster, but he was not on Indra's level. Their training session was coming to an end as Indra blocked another swing. He crouched down and punched Izuku in the stomach, sending him into the wall. "You're going to have to be quicker, Izuku. You rely too much on the swift release to get me," Indra said as Izuku recovers from Tay hit and got out of the rubble. Indra rushed quickly to Izuku and disappeared, to only pop up at his left side. He was about to hit him with the sword, but Izuku ducked down as a red, crimson glow come from his right eye and veins building pressure at his left eye. Indra quickly activated his Sharingan and dodged the hit, but had a smirk present on his face. Using the Byakugan and Sharingan at the same time, huh? Haven't seen or heard of that one, but it only makes it more interesting. He infused his sword with lighting chakra and appeared behind Izuku. But the one weakness is that you need both Byakugan to see nearly 360 degrees. He brought his sword down quickly and Izuku was just able to dodge and breathing hard as he couldn't hold the two dojutsus at once, as he fell to the ground, exhausted. Indra was very happy with his progress and helped him up. "You know something," he said to the blonde. "You might just be the most powerful person in the future," he said and saw the boy fall asleep in his arms while he chuckled. Just like Ashura. And with that he allowed Izuku to rest after a long day. Outside Izuku's mindscape, Nizu entered the room, seeing All Might, in his Tire form, sitting next to Izuku. Toshinori's true form is incredibly different to his buff form. He has sharp, angular featured and long limbs, and his eyebrows absent. He possesses a large scar that covers the most of the left side of his chest, with him spitting out blood when he is excited or surprised. His hero costume was also really big on him, so it looked like he was a child in big clothes. "You called for me, Toshinori," Nizu said while looking at his old student who nodded. "Nizu, can you help me with a divorce?" he asked, and he looked shocked before smiling kindly. "I am guessing that your wife had made Izuku live a life like your childhood?" he questioned Toshinori who nodded. "Of course you would figure it out." He chuckled and Nizu softly nodded before sitting down next to him. "Nizu, do you think he is worthy? You know for my quirk?" he asked, and Nizu thought about it before looking at the number one hero. "It matters what his dream is and his heart, but if I truly go by who you are and compare you lives, then I have no doubt that he will be perfect," Nizu said while drinking a tea he magically made. "I guess you're right." He looked at Izuku. "At least I can be your number one dad," he said, and Nizu chuckled happily. He found it fun to know that even in the worst of times, Toshinori could make something positive, something that made him as good of a hero as he is. In space, this chakra keeps on going incredibly fast. I love it, love it, love it. I want the fight now. Once I get to Earth, I will make sure I find you. She let out a crazed laugh after as she darted off more, moving as fast as she could. Estimated arrival time 2 years. Izuku's mindscape, start of the 2nd year. Izuku looked at Indra in confusion. He had talked earlier about the 4th and 5th form of the Sharingan, but he was incredibly confused. Izuku was now wearing similar clothes to Indra and Ashura and his just being smaller. "I'll go over it again," Indra said with a frustrated sigh. "Even though you haven't mastered the 3rd state of the Sharingan, I can still give you the 4th form. This would progress the Sharingan to have 3 Tomo on both eyes and to have the Mangekyo Sharingan, plus the internal Mangekyo Sharingan." He repeated his words while Izuku nodded and got up. "How?" he said with a shining smile, and Indra felt really bad. It was like his brother had gotten smaller and younger, and he had to put him through that experience. "Just look into my eyes," Indra said as they turned to lines swirling, originating from the pupil. Izuku looked into the eyes as he was then placed into a genjutsu of him failing to do what Hagoromo told him he would do. He saw chaos and carnage with no peace or freedom. He then saw his old life and all the torment he had went through. He saw Indra, Ashura, Hamura, and Hagoromo dead. He cried at the loss of his new family and looked on in terror, as a giant beast with 10 tails shot a ball at him. "Izuku, snap out!" Indra shouted as he hugged the boy. "It's not real, it was a genjutsu so you could unlock the Mangekyo Sharingan," he said as Izuku cried over as the feeling of him being a failure spread through him, as Indra told him he wasn't. Ashura wanted to check what was going on, saw them and realized what happened. He put a hand on Izuku's shoulder and gently smiled as he also embraced him. Izuku felt so warm between them. "Is this what a family feels like?" he said quietly, as the two brothers simply gave a yes or a nod, Izuku soon fell asleep in their arms. "Nisan, were you sure he was ready?" Ashura asked his older brother, who nodded. "I thought he could, and I know he can get over it. Remember what father said about the threat. It is best for him to unlock as many powers, as early as possible, so I have him the power of the Mangekyo." Indra replied and looked sad. "I don't want him to suffer. Not like us." "I know, Nisan." Few hours later, Izuku felt warm and snuggled into whatever he was curled up in as he heard a snicker. "It looks like Kurama has a soft spot for blondes." He heard Matatabi tease Kurama, and he then noticed he was sleeping on Kurama. "Shut it, fire cat." Kurama hissed, and the other-tailed beast just laughed as the blonde got up. "Thank you, Mr. Big Fox Miney," he said with a smile, while the fox huffed at the nickname. Yeah, kid. Just get back to training," he told him, as Izuku smiled and ran to the training area he had in his head. His mindscape had many changes. It was no more a sewer but a vast land, complete with mountains, forests, and lakes. In the center was where Hagoromo, Indra, Izuku, and Ashura lived, with a training ground with their house looking like the Otsutsuki compound. There were 9 biomes as well for each tailed beast. There was a desert for Shikaku, a volcanic land for Matatabi and Son Goku, a river for Isabu, Saiken and Gyuki, open lands for Koku, and a forest for Kurama and Komiai. Izuku ran to the compound as he looked up and saw the moon in there, where Hamura was. He quickly got to the compound and heard Hagoromo planting some plants as he sneaked up on him. He waited for the perfect in time and then did a sneak attack hug, which shocked Hagoromo, but he gave one back. "It's good to see you up, Izuku," he said while rubbing his hair. "Hey, stop," he said while the old man laughed as he continued, as Izuku pouted, "Humph." He finally stopped. "Anyway, are you alright? I heard that Indra awakened your Mangekyo," he told him as the blonde smiled and nodded quickly. "Yeah, and soon I will be able to beat you, too, San." Hagoromo smiled with a chuckle. "Oh, believe me, I know you will one day." Izuku's smile grew and he ran inside. "Ashura ni, Indra ni!" he shouted as both appeared and were taken down by the blonde, in a hug with the force of a truck. "Hello, Izuku," Ashura said with a chuckle. "Hey, Otuto." Indra had a smirk on his face. "Can you teach me some cool tricks with the Mangekyo?" He looked at Indra, who simply gave him a forehead tap with 2 fingers. "Sorry, Izuku, but that will have to be the day we have training," he said while Izuku looked at his other brother and rubbed his head with a pout. "What's the day, Ashura ni?" "Today is training with me." "Well then, let's go." He smiled brighter and ran to the training field as Ashura followed. He saw that Izuku was full of energy and was already doing basic wood-release jutsus. "Izuku, today we will try something else," Ashura said and stood next to him. "Like what, Nisan?" he asked as he tilted his head. "We will learn how to go into a sage mode," he said, and Izuku sat next to him. "Like Tusan?" Ashura shook his head. "Sage mode for wood release." Izuku's eyes glowed and he smiled. "Can we go it now, Nisan, please?" In the house. Hagoromo enters the house, as he looked outside and saw his 2 younger sons training. Over the 2 years, they grew to a family, and Izuku was like a third son to him, and fit right in. He saw Indra drinking a tea and keeping an eye on both of them. "Making sure that Ashura does it right, Indra?" he asked as the brunette looked at his dad. "You know how dense and thick-headed Ashura can be." Hagoromo chuckled and looked outside to see Izuku watching Ashura and his every move. "Father, this threat. Are you sure Izuku can beat it?" "Positive," he told his son. "I believe in him and I know he will be able to." He saw Izuku try to enter Sage mode but fail. Ashura can go into it quickly while Izuku doesn't even know how to tap into the chakra around him. "Looks like I have to step in." With Izuku and Ashura. "How did you do it, Nisan?" he asked confused, but felt his hand touch his shoulder, and it belonging to Hagoromo. "Izuku, what did Ashura tell you to do?" the old sage asked. "He said I should focus on my wood release and put it into my body, and it should just appear." The old man sat next to the blonde and smiled at his sons. "Well, the first time should take very long to even get into. Maybe you should train with the toads of Mount Maiboku. That way it will be easier for you when you go into your wood release sage mode." Izuku liked the thought, and nodded quickly. "That would be nice, and I will get to meet talking toads." Hagoromo laughed at Izuku's response and rubbed his hair. "Sometimes I just enjoy your responses more than anything." He chuckled out, and Izuku smiled brightly. Now Izuku, that will happen after you wake up, so enjoy what time you have here. He was about to walk away, but he then saw Izuku look at him with pleading eyes. Can you help with the Mangekyo Sharingan? He pleased, and Hagoromo had one weakness that those who knew would never think of. He was very weak to when Izuku would ask him of anything. Fine, but just the Susanoo. Izuku smiled brightly and got ready for it as Hagoromo exploded in a blue light and was engulfed in a full set of armor as a giant samurai-like warrior was in his place. Izuku's eyes sparkled as he saw just how tall the Susanoo is. His was bigger than Kurama, and he grew excited to learn more. Time skip 3rd year. Izuku had got the basics of the Susanoo down in this time, and could form a full body, but far from the perfect Susanoo still. He also had mastered one ability, and that being Kamui, which was the ability to transfer an object, living or non-living, and store it in one's personal dimensions, that can only be accessed by the Mangekyo user. This also allows him to fade through objects, like a ghost, and also can put himself in there. He also had Amaterasu, which are flames that will burn for 7 days and nights until the target is completely incinerated. He didn't have much control and rarely used it, and a little bonus he got was the fact that Indra gave him the ability of the Mangekyo, automatically giving him the internal Mangekyo Sharingan. He also had his own special ability as well, and that being a Menamina Kanushi, the power to create chakra weapons without any problems. This ability is basically an evolution to chakra rods, where Izuku can make any weapon he so desires out of chakra, and this is more stronger than any weapon. The basics are this. Izuku can create a weapon from chakra, any elemental chakra and even Kekai Genkais, and use as a weapon that cannot be broken. It also allows him to drain someone's power and out it into a weapon, an example being if Izuku drains someone of a flame quirk, his weapon will be made of their flames. This ability can evolve when the Tensigen or Rinnegan are involved. He had mastered the Byakugan too and would soon reach its evolution, but couldn't because the limitations of his body and not wanting to stunt his growth stopped. He also was nearing the same level as the 7 ninja swordsmen of the mist in Kenjutsu. He found out that his favorite weapon to use was a staff, and so used that a lot more. He also started to get visions of all Indra and Ashura's past lives, and also Hagoromo and Hamura's lives as well. Izuku became a master at taijutsu with him reaching low Kage level. He also started to sense the threat heading to Earth, and so trained harder and harder. If he was to guess, then this threat was the same level as Momoshiki, when he came to Earth and fought Sasuke and Naruto. Learning all he could from the memories he got, he tried to make a plan to fight this threat, but didn't really know until they fought. Time skip 4th year. Kenjutsu. High Jonin level. Ninjutsu. Kage level. Taijutsu. High Kage level. Fuinjutsu. Seal Master LV510. Genjutsu. Low Kage level. Mastered Kekai Genkais. Wood release. Swift release. Magnet release. Lava release. Scorch release. Storm release. Boil release. Ice release. Mastered Chakra elements. Fire release. Water release. Lighting release. Earth release. Wind release. Dojutsu. Sharingan, 3 tomo in each eye. Mangekyo Sharingan. Internal Mangekyo Sharingan. Byakugan. Mangekyo Sharingan abilities. Susanoo. Tsukiyomi. Kamui. Amenamina Kanushi. Izuku was running around the house, being chased by Ashura because he took one of his plushies of Kuruma. Izuku! Ashura roared. Get back here! They ran past Indra's room while said male got out of the room and saw them running. A tick mark came onto his head and he chased them both. No running in the house at this time of day. Indra shouted at them both while Izuku moved like a cat to jump out of the window and got away, but bumping into Hamura and Hagoromo. Aoi. Sorry uncle, but I got the Kuruma plushie, he said with excitement, while the 2 older men laughed at him and picked him up. Well, you should go and hide with him then, the longer-haired man said, and Izuku thought about before running off in Kuruma's direction. Kids, Hagoromo stated with a smirk, and Hamura chuckled. With Kuruma. So you're telling me that you stole a plushie of me from Ashura and you're hiding away? The fox said while Izuku nodded. Well, I guess you can hide, but don't make a noise. 20 minutes later. Izuku, you better be here, Ashura said as he looked inside and saw Izuku resting on Kuruma and holding the plushie close. Fine, you can have it, but only because you're my little brother, Ashura stated and went back to their home. Time skip 5th year. I will reference the training on parts, as just revealing all he can do stayed away feels like there is nothing to really find new at all. Izuku had become at a level that was considered to be already above all heroes. He smiled as he thought of his progress. Izuku, the old sage said, it is time for you to wake up, but remember that we are in your mindscape, so don't forget to ask us for anything. He added a smile at the end. Hamura patted him on the back. In this time you she grown to become a splendid shinobi, and one that will surpass us. I believe you can beat this threat, Izuku. He then felt a pair of arms wrapped around his neck, which belonged to Ashura. Listen, Izuku, you have done great, and no matter what, you are family, so never forget that family and friends are two of the most important things. He gave a hair tub and they both smiled. Ashura stopped as Izuku pulled into a hug by Indra. Izuku, you are my Oturo, so no matter what, I believe that you will be the greatest hero this world will see and beat this threat. Make me proud, Indra said with a kind smile. Izuku whipped tears off his face and smiled his sun-powered smile. Don't worry, I will become what you expect and even better. I will become the #1 hero and remind the world of chakra and of the Sage of Six Paths. Believe it. He put a thumbs up at them and they all smiled and waved him a goodbye. Izuku started to feel his body again, meaning he was about to wake up. Location: Japan, Mustafa, UA, Recovery Girl's office. Izuku's eyes opened as he heard a gasp. He looked at the old hero who smiled from her shock. Hello there, young man, I am Recovery Girl and you are in UA. Izuku looked at the old lady with eyes that were like sources. He was in UA, the place of his dreams, the school he wanted to get into. Of course he mumbled that all out, but noticed a skeleton, blonde man asleep next to him. Kid, you she been out for 5 days. You seem to have awakened a quirk that I can't identify, or any tech for that matter. Recovery Girl told him, but noticed his gaze on Tashinori. He has been there since you were out in. He is worried about you, she gently told him, while Izuku tried to figure who he could be. Izuku was looking at his features, but what stood out was his blonde hair, the same color his was before Hagoromo found him. Izuku heard said skeleton finally get up and look around, as Izuku noticed the blue eyes. The blonde-haired man looked at him and smiled gently. Hey kid, you're finally up. He added a smile to the end of his sentence. Not to be rude, sir, but who are you? He softly asked, and the old man got up and went in front of his bed. Who am I, you ask? He then buffed up and All Might stood before the blonde boy in all his glory. And no need to ask, because I am here, he said in his booming voice as Izuku's eyes widened and he grew a smile, as his inner fan became out. Oh my god, you're All Might? What are you doing here? How long have you been here? Was that really your true identity? Why? He was gently tapped on the head by the old lady, Izuku realizing he mumbled again. I'm sorry, he said with embarrassment, and the hero chuckled. And no need, young Yagi, to care. I actually find it nice to listen, except it is hard to follow, he told him with a thumbs up. Izuku smiled and tried to get out of his bed, but his body wasn't really ready for the drastic changes it had to take to comply with his training. Izuku nearly fell but was stopped by All Might, who had concern written on his face. Izuku held on to All Might for support. Young Yagi, you should try to get more rest, the #1 told Izuku, who smiled at the hero and sat down on the bed. Sorry, All Might, I didn't realize that body is still changing. Also, can I ask you a question? Sure. Should I know you? This question made the hero be shocked, and he scratched the back of his neck. Well, yes. How? Young Yagi. The reason why is because I am your dad. Izuku looked on in pure shock as the hero wrapped his arms around him. I'm sorry, son. If I knew what Inko would have done, then I would have trusted you with someone else. His eyes had regret hovering over them, and Izuku just kindly smiled. It's alright. You're the #1 hero. It would only make sense that you want to protect your family. You kept away so we would be safe. I don't know what a dad would do, as I am not one myself, but if I was, then I would do the same if I was in your position. All Might looked shocked at his intelligence but chuckled. Thank you for understanding. I thought it would be a very different situation we would have right now, he told his son, who looked happy. Dad. The name made All Might's heart warm up. What's going to happen now? Easy. You will live with me and we train you to become the next #1 hero, he told his son, who looked up with a bright smile plastered on his face. Yeah, I will become the next #1 hero, and then I will protect everyone with a smile on my face, just like you. Believe it, he vowed, and both adults smiled, but All Might wonder why he was saying believe it. Why do you say believe it? He asked, and Izuku rubbed the back of his head. Picked some things up from someone, I guess. He chuckled while he could hear an argument between both Indra and Ashura in his head again. Simply about Naruto words going into Izuku and Indra blaming Ashura. All Might depowered from his buff form and looked at his son before smiling. By the way, I am getting a divorce on your MO. The temperature of the room went down when he basically said mother. Tashinori quickly realized and changes the sentence. I mean Inko. She can keep Izumi because I will not tolerate you having to suffer more. He simply said while the temperature was back to normal, and Izuku had a bright smile on his face. Okay dad, but I'm hungry. Tashinori buffed up again and grabbed Izuku. Time to be the number one dad then. Izuku chuckled at the name as they went off to get something to eat while Recovery Girl stood there. Wait, I didn't tell you could leave. Hey, get back here! She shouted at the pair that were already far gone. Truly father and son, she mumbled with a smile. Time skip, Japan, Mustafa, UA, Principal Nizu office. Izuku was now in Nizu's office and stared at the mouse bear dog in confusion. He wanted to see him, but all they have done is look at each other. Izuku. The principal finally spoke, breaking the silence. I will allow you to live on UA grounds because of your father being All Might, which he said he will be working here in 5 to 4 years. Nizu told the blue-eyed male who nodded with a smile. Can I call you uncle then? He asked innocently, and the rot god devil just took a sip of his tea and nodded before smiling. Izuku, do you collect information on people? He asked with a dark aura around him, while Izuku nodded. Yeah. I used to collect information on heroes. I have one on me right now. He told him with excitement, and Nizu grinned. Can I take a look? Here you go then. He pulled the book out of his inner pocket of his jacket, and gave it to Nizu, who looked through. The grin continued to grow on Nizu's face as he read more into it. Thank you Izuku, and don't worry about school. I will teach you. As Nizu said that, a shiver went down all UA staff's spines. The blonde just agreed. Where do I live in here then? He asked with a question mark over his head, and Nizu pointed to the new area, made by Cementos. Izuku thanked him and ran to the area. Nizu sat down on his desk as a dark and evil smile crossed his lips. He laughed like a maniac in his office. I know have my student. Soon, I will pass down my teachings and this world will soon fear me more than it already does. With Izuku. Izuku ran to his house with a happy smile on his face. When he went outside, the plant life became more beautiful. It turned to a beautiful scene while the young Yagi came to the entrance of his new house. He entered and saw something he never thought he would ever see. He saw his dad in the kitchen with a cake. You're back early, Izuku, but I have to say, happy birthday, my little hero. Izuku beamed a smile that made All Might nearly go blind, as his smile alone had the light of the sun. Tears were also at the corner of Izuku's eyes. He ran to his dad and hugged him while the hero gave a smile. It reminded him of his first birthday with Nana. He hugged his son back as they stayed like that for a good 2 minutes. Izuku finally let go while wiping his tears away. Thanks, Dad, he said with his eyes still covered in a watery cover, and the Tashinori nodded and got on his level. Anytime. So I figured Katsudan tonight? He already knew the answer, and the boy nodded quickly. Oh, before I forget. Here's your present. He gave Izuku a wrapped gift that did seem small. Izuku unwrapped it and found a necklace. The necklace had a green gem hooked by a silver chain. It also had the symbols of the Uchiha, Senju, Uzumaki, Hyuga, and Otsutsuki clan engraved on it when Izuku touched it. Izuku looked and paled. It was the first of many gifts he got. He wasn't complaining, but he felt like he didn't deserve it, but today was his birthday, so he allowed it. I thought you would like the necklace, as you said about a green necklace one time. Tashinori scratched the back of his head and the boy let his cries out, which made the hero worried until he saw the joy on Izuku's face. Thank you, he said quietly, and Tashinori knew why. He knew the feeling far too well and smiled. He remembered when Nana brought him a gift, his first ever in a long time, and he cried uncontrollably. Izuku, I did say that I will be your number one dad, and I plan on keeping that promise. The older blonde-haired man told Izuku as they were locked in another hug. It soon ended and he unwrapped more while Tashinori looked on with a smile. Izuku's second gift was from David and Melissa's shield. It was a gaming console brought, with games and also training equipment. Izuku's third was from Nizu, which was lots, and I mean lots, of money. Izuku's fourth came from the sleep-deprived hobo hero, Aizawa, and was a cat, more specifically a kitten. Izuku could name the cat and he chose Rabenda, Lavender, because she smelt like lavender. Rabenda was kitten with white fluffy fur, with black patches around her fur. She had adorable green eyes. She immediately stole his heart. Izuku's fourth gift was from the Hero Commission's president, who had given Izuku access to more hidden knowledge and to learn more about the world, or in normal words, books. Izuku's fifth gift was from Recovery Girl, and these were some sweets. And the final one was from Gran Torino, who had given Izuku his grandmother's ring, which was her gift to Gran Torino. Izuku had many more, but he decided to open them another day, which Toshinori found fair, and they enjoyed the evening. They would spend it as father and son. They would watch All Might movies, which made Toshinori and Izuku actually cringe at, so they stopped. Mainly because Toshinori found them embarrassing and Izuku found it weird, as he watched his dad played the way he was. They did get a visit from a couple of people, a few being Aizawa and Nizu. Aizawa showed him how to treat cats and Nizu had shown him how to set up his console and help him with his books. After the day, he went to sleep and was in his mindscape, where 13 in there had their gifts to him. Hagoromo had given him a special release, also known as gravity release. Reason is, it would help him unlocking the Rinnegan. Hamura had given him the ability to summon his truth-seeking orbs already, so it would help later on. Indra had given him his sword, which shocked Izuku, because Indra never let it out of his sight. Ashura had finally given him full rights to the Kuruma plushie, which made everyone have a laugh. Kuruma had given him the fox contact as well. Reason was because Izuku loved fluffy animals. Also Matatabi gave him the cat contract for the same reason. Gyuki had given him 8 swords, which were a reminder of Killer Bee and the legacy of the shinobi world. Komiai had given the ability to speak to bugs and they would understand him. Weird, right? Saiken had given him plushies of the rest of the tailed beasts, and a way to generate bubbles through a pipe. Koku improved his speed more and had given him the way to use the basics of the tailed beast bomb. Son Goku had given him added strength, and also the ability to climb expertly, even if he can fly. Isabu had given him the ability to breathe underwater, and allow him to take water molecules as a way to fight, like Tobiyama. And Shikaku had given him the ability to generate curse marks if needed and a gourd of sand. He was happy and they had their own party. Izuku would remember it as one of the greatest times of his life. Next day. What do you mean you want a divorce? You heard me right, Inko. I want a divorce. Toshinori told her with Izuku by his side. The best part of this was the fact that it was a family meetup for Izumi. Toshinori just knew when to pick it. But why? The greenette said with tears in her eyes. Why? Toshinori repeated. Don't give me that. You know damn well why. He enters the house with Izuku behind him. They got to the living room where many looked shocked to see him. The kids were shocked to see Izuku. Izuku. Toshinori called out his son's name. We still have to open many more of your gifts. Yeah, I know, but that will take so long. He pouted at the end and the older blonde chuckled. Toshinori. The number 2 hero said. It's good to see you again. He said with a smile and Toshinori returned it. Enji Todoroki, or more commonly known as Endeavor, is a tall, sturdily built man with a very muscular physique. He has short crimson hair, which he wears spiked up around his head and sharp turquoise eyes. His beard and mustache appear to be made of fire, but when he voluntarily turns off the flames on his face, a small stubble shows around his jaw. Enji, it's good to see you. He then patted Izuku the head. Izuku, this is Enji, but I think you. He is Endeavor, the number 2 hero. I know. He said, stopping his dad's sentence and making both heroes shocked. He looks exactly like him without the fire beard. He just said and they took it as the answer. Sensei. A man with green and yellow hair spoke. Why are you here? Mirai Sasaki, or more commonly known as Sir Night Eye, was a tall, lean but muscular man with rather sharp and elongated features. His shiny hair was always worn smooth down and parted to his left, and was of a dark green color, with 3 yellow streaks towards the front, 2 on his right, and 1 on his left. His eyebrows were also yellowish, matching the rims of the triangular glasses he wore, and the strikingly bright yellow irises of his stern-looking eyes. His looks gave off a sense of authority and power, as he rarely smiled and looked stern, and he always appeared to be glaring. Well, I am getting a divorce. Many gasps were heard in the room and the male's eyes widened. The reason is the fact that I thought I could trust Inko with Izuku and Izumi, but instead she only wanted a child with a quirk. I have lost love that I had once had for her, and now she only reminds me of my father. He simply told them while looking at Izuku, who had a big smile okay his face. Dad, do you want to see something cool? Impress me, Izuku. Summoning jutsu. Suddenly a poof of smoke was around Izuku. Once it cleared, a fox stood there with 9 tails. He summoned Kurama in his baby form. Hey kid, I was sleeping. The fox barked at Izuku, who only smiled. But I wanted to summon you, Mr. Big Fox meanie. Izuku gave an innocent smile. I told you to stop calling me that, he growled at Izuku. But it's true. He picked him up, as the fox rolled its eyes. A talking fox? Tashinori said with pure shock, which was on everyone's face. Now I think I have seen everything. No, he can get really, really big, he told them as the fox looked at everyone. He seemed to growl when he looked at Inko and the kids. Anyway, Inko, you will have to sign these papers and we will be divorced. I don't care what you say, I can't give a damn, Tashinori told her with no emotion in his voice. She eventually did, and he left with Izuku. Izuku today would start his first lesson with Nizu and he was excited, but his dad did tell him to weary of Nizu if he goes a bit mad. Japan, Mustafa Yue, Principal Nizu office. Izuku entered to see Nizu sitting down with a smile on his face. Welcome, Izuku, to your first lesson. I will make this one simple and we will move on from there. Izuku nodded and sat down to see the questions he was given. It was lessons for his age group and he found it very easy, which did make Nizu happy. Nizu then gave him work of the first years of UA, and was even more impressed that Izuku easily did it. Uncle Nizu. The blonde spoke up. What does sex mean? He asked innocently, and it completely took Nizu off guard. He looked at the blonde boy and tried to think of an answer. Izuku, I will tell you when you're older. Okay, uncle. He smiled and skipped out of the room. Nizu looked at the door and sighed. I think I have just found my only weakness, the principal said under his breath. With Izuku. Izuku enters his house, which was only him because Tashinori had hero work. He went into his room and gently closed the door. He sat on his bed with his legs crossed and stayed like that, until he opened and saw what seemed to be just space. Hello, human. A woman's voice rang through the abyss. Izuku looked behind him to see a blue-haired girl staring at him. The mysterious girl had such pale skin it would make the color white jealous, and her face was round and angular, accompanied by her pale milky eyes, and her face framed by 2 long, light blue strands of hair. Her fringe was cut to be above her 2 blue, circular eyebrows, and her hair ties back and flowed down to her feet. She had 2 horns that resembled fox ears at the sides of her head. She wore a similar outfit of that of Hagoromo and Hamura, with hers only having a black ribbon around her skinny waist and an opening for her chest that was covered by a shinobi vest. She also wore black leggings which were only seen at the sides of her legs. Izuku's eyes widened as his mind raced to. She has the same chakra of the threat coming to Earth. Do not be alarmed, human, she said in a sweet and kind tone. I only wished to speak, so I summoned a chakra apposition of yourself to talk. She gave a soft smile after, and he looked spectacle. How can I trust you? He asked while her smile stayed on her face. You shouldn't, I just want to know what I am up against and I like it. She looked him up and down. I might keep you alive, so I can get what I want after. I can let you live if you agree to become my husband. Her smile grew and she unleashed a bit of her bloodlust. I will not just betray my planet for someone I just met, he told her. You should make the person you love your husband, not someone you just see. Is that how you humans do it? Sorry, but in Otsutsuki culture, we pick the strongest to be our significant other. She informed him and she looked at him up and down again. Keep in mind that they are the same age. Well, you shouldn't do that. That seems unfair and you will never experience what love actually feels like. What does love feel like? She asked, this time completely intrigued. I was raised to destroy. I have never had this love thing. Well, I can't explain really because love comes in many different ways, but you will know if it does. She nodded and looked at him curiously. So is that what I feel right now? She asked again while looking frustrated. What is love? Why is it confusing? She said to herself while keeping her sweet and kind side open for Izuku to see. Izuku had a blush on his cheeks. He had never heard a girl say that they liked him, so he was taken off guard but got himself back together as he saw her frustration. Listen, I can help you. All I ask is that you change the way of your life. You think that will work so easily? I was raised as a weapon. She growled at him while he looked at her sadly. I understand you more than you think. She looked at him shocked. When I turned 4, I basically lost everything. I lost my family, basic human rights, a happy childhood. Every day I was bullied, beaten, bloodied. I was never treated with respect or even a sense of pity for the people I once considered family. I grew up believing I was nothing but a useless toy in some god's world. I suffered and I nearly got rid of myself from the face of the earth, not so long ago. He said, looking down, while she didn't know how to react. But that changed when I met Tu-san, Uncle Hamura, Indra Ni, and Ashura Ni. I got a family back, I gained friends to them, and my life took a complete 180. I now live one of the best lives going, and I owe it all to them for. She just stood there, unable to speak. Her body moved on its own as she embraced him in a hug, which shocked them both. A blush spread itself around her white face, and Izuku's looked shocked as his heart pumped more than it ever had before as blood rushed to his face, warming his cheeks up. I didn't mean to hug you, she said in disbelief. By he returned the hug. Our hearts feels each other's pain, so we lean on each other for support. She listened and allowed what her body wanted to happen. She snuggled into his chest, as they stayed in place on each other's embrace. Izuku stroked her light blue hair and picked up a few strands. Has anyone ever told you that your hair looks so beautiful? He blushed after saying that but kept on stroking her hair. No, she stuttered out as she hid her face more in his chest. Your horns look cute on you too. Her face reddened as they both could feel the other's heartbeat. What's your name anyway? Keikayun Atsutsuki. Her voice was muffled but he heard. Izuku Yagi. He felt his chakra starting to fade and she looked worried, but he smiled. If you hold on to my chakra, which is going back to the original me, just hold on to it with your chakra and you should be back with me. She nodded and did so. As soon as his chakra returned, they both collided with each other on his bed. She had laying on him on the bed and she looked around. It's so different, she said in awe, and he smiled. Kayun. Her face heated up from him just saying his name. Can you get off my lap? She quickly looked down and saw their very suggestive position, and she jumped with a squeal. Izuku thought he could already hear the teasing from his two brothers. Izuku got up and patted her head with a smile, which melted Kayun's heart further. Suddenly the door opened and in came Tashinori, who saw the girl, and a smirk came on his features. Well, didn't expect you to get a girlfriend so quickly, he said with a smile, and Izuku's face blew up, completely flustered, while Kayun was standing there with her whole body going through a reboot. Dad. Sorry, Izuku, but it is way too fun to tease you, and by your reaction I know it to be true. He could see him hide the blush as he chuckled as the blue-haired girl finally came back to reality. Why, you must be Mr. Yagi, she said stuttering, and he nodded. Sorry Sir F for my intrusion, but I don't have anywhere to live. You can stay here then. I think Izuku would like that anyway. The older blonde simply told her, and she had her jaw wide open. Humans were so different. She remembered her father simply beat someone because they asked one thing. She started to like it here more. I see why Lady Kaguya came here, she thought as she looked at Izuku, who was also blushing and seemed to have a number battle with himself. Look who got a girlfriend already. Ashura cooed in his head. Of course he did, he has Uchiha in him, Indra said with a smirk. Are you calling my descendants ugly? He asked with a question mark above his head. I don't have to state the obvious, Indra replied while Ashura grew a tick mark. Just look at Madara, Itachi and Sasuke and then say something. Ashura just grumbled and walked away. Izuku. Kayun waved a hand in his face and he came back to reality. So I am living with you now, she said with a blush. That's awesome. Believe it. In space. So she picked a human over her duties, a old voice said while looking on in space. I knew you would be a failure since the day you were born. You were always a waste for me, and now I have the dishonor of calling you my daughter. He walked outside as his Rinnegan eyes blazed black. Izuku woke up in his room, feeling a new weight on his chest. Looking down, he saw Kayun sleeping peacefully on him. He smiled and laid down, thinking of what he will do today. He decided that they could train, which was highly recommended by Hagoromo because she was more experienced with the other dojutsus. He laid on the bed and felt the blue-haired girl started to wake up. He smiled down at her and gently stroked her hair. Morning, Kayun, he said with his usual sun-level smile. Kayun had just woken up and saw that she slept on his chest. The poor girl fainted, while Izuku heard a giggle in his head. Looks like you have a way with the ladies. Matatabi teased while Izuku was confused. What does way with the ladies mean? He asked innocently, and the flame cat just didn't answer, making him more confused. A few minutes later, Kaiyun finally awakened again and was in a complete blushing mess. Morning Izuku. She stuttered out, and she felt his muscles, which made her thoughts all around them. How does he have such muscles? They looked to be made of marble. Her thoughts carried her feelings as her face was completely taken over by her blush. Morning Kaiyun. He smiled at her, which made her heart skip a beat. Why are you touching my chest? He again asked, and she tried to answer but couldn't. Her mind was taken over by one thing and one thing only. I must become his wife. Her determined mind set for that one goal, while Izuku had a puzzled expression. Is it normal to touch other people's chests in your culture? He asked while she lost her voice completely. So if I did it, then it would be a good thing. He told himself as Kaiyun felt her whole body shiver with that one phase. She saw his hand reach for her chest. Her breath became harder and fast. Her face was turned to a crimson color, and her heart beat so fast it could jump out of her chest. He then put his hand on her chest as Kaiyun was lost in the moment. Her whole body was frozen. Her heart pumped more blood around her body. She felt her whole body get warmer, and she felt her knees shake uncontrollably. Squishy, he said while touching one of her breasts, and the poor girl fainted again. Did I do something wrong? He then heard Hagoromo chuckle. Izuku, you're not supposed to do that. Because of your muscles, she touched yours. What you just did is the starting point to making me a granddad. Izuku felt his face get warm after hearing that. So I would be a dad if I did that? He asked, flustered and in an innocent way. No, there are more steps, but she is a Otsutsuki. Their lust can grow around the one they consider their lover. If you were to do more things like that, then yes. Hagoromo answered, and Izuku fainted as well. They both were together like that before waking up. Izuku, Kaiyun said. Please don't do that yet. I am not ready for that. She told him with a huge blush across her face. Is it being a mom? Well, yeah, I don't want to be a mother yet. She told him while he was still confused. How does touching someone's chest make them pregnant? You're too innocent to know, Izuku, Kaiyun said with a kiss on his cheek that made both of them shocked. Wait, Kaiyun, want to go on a date? He asked while trying not to stutter. You want me to go on a date? What's a date? It's where two people who like each other go out and enjoy their time together. He tried to explain it as she smiled. Well then, let's go. She gave a big smile before getting up. Wait, do I get to try human food? She asked, and he nodded. She changed out of her clothes and into some things that Izuku has, of course in the bathroom so Izuku couldn't see anything. Izuku also changed into a navy blue shirt with plus ultra on the front, accompanied by a black jeans, which he also wore a pair of white sneakers. Is that what Americans call it? Kaiyun came out as Izuku's eyes widened. She wore a turquoise blue shirt with a pair of black leggings. The problem for both Izuku and Kaiyun was the fact that being a Otsutsuki can sometimes mean growth in certain places. The shirt and leggings did not hide her size for each part. Kaiyun, we need to buy clothes for you, he told her while she looked with a puzzled expression. Buy clothes? Is that something poor people do? Kaiyun, I am one of the richest kids on this planet, and I do it. What do people of your class do in Otsutsuki culture? Well, to be honest, we mostly just kill and kill and kill. We also conquer worlds, and if you don't know, we kill, she said with a smile. We need to get you a hobby, he said with a bit of worry. Why a hobby? What is a hobby? Is it a person? No, it's something to do, and you love to do it. We will just try to find it for now. He rubbed the back of his head and she nodded, while still confused about the whole thing. They did get ready and go for their first date. It was a nice and peaceful one, with Izuku mostly teaching her, and him enjoying her reactions to new things. Nearing the end, they told each other lives and figured out how terrible they both were, but this date had to have something go wrong. Izuku and Kaiyun were wearing ice cream, which Izuku found out that she really loved it. Their day was then ruined by one person, his name being Katsuki Bakugo. Deka! He shouted as Izuku didn't even look. Hey damn nerd! I am talking to you! He walked up and grabbed his shirt, but he was then on the ground. He didn't even know how he got there, but the feeling of pain ran through his entire body. Katsuki? How coldly it was said made the ash blonde shiver in fear. I gave you a chance to not fight, I gave you chance to leave, I gave you chance to not be harmed. He pulled on Katsuki's arms, twisting it and bending it into places it shouldn't be in. in Izuku's mindscape. Oh shit, his Indra is showing! Ashura shouted in Izuku's head, while he was smacked by Indra. Back with Izuku. Gi damn Deku. Let G. He was stopped by Izuku breaking his arm in anger. His elbow was snapped in two, his shoulder smashed to pieces, and his wrist non-existent. He was in such agony, it made a villain seem like a friendly fellow than what Izuku had just done. How many times did I say something like that, Katsuki? When we were younger, when I was your punching bag. You have no right on telling me what I should do. Because in truth, this is what a hero should do to a villain, make them unable to hurt people. You Katsuki aren't a hero, and you never will be. You're a failure, a villain, a true one as well. I bet if you tried to be a hero, you would be shunned by every other, you would bring shame to them all. He left Katsuki crying on the ground, as he left with Kaiyun who was watching and eating her ice cream. Izuku, she said with a quiet voice. I didn't know you could be so cool, she said with stars in her eyes. HN? What? He was surprised while a nice little chat went on in his head. Izuku's mindscape. How the hell did he learn that weird language you created, Nissan? Ashura asked dumbfounded. Only a true Uchiha knows it, Indra said while holding back tears. Truly my Otuto. What about me? Ashura asked. You are the same as him, it just makes me happy knowing I don't talk to no one anymore. I can talk to someone in my first language. The HN was not your first word, Ashura just stated while Hagoromo whistled. It wasn't right? Hagoromo just looked over. Your mother understood it somehow, and told me he said her name first. And they did speak to each other like that. But I never noticed. With Izuku and Kaiyun. I mean you were like the tail of Danshiki, she said while he looked at her puzzled. Well, the tail of Danshiki was his power of karma. If anyone did attack to him, they would revive one back with 10 times the power. So why was he famous? He asked, and she had a bigger smile on her face. He would go around and fight people, and also help those in need. Anytime anyone something bad or tried to attack him, they would be under karma. She trailed off after that and Izuku gave her a small tap, which brought her back from her ranting. What I am trying to say is he got what he deserved. Kaiyun, we just call that karma, he told her, while she looked incredibly shocked. But we call it the Danshiki's curse and we have a story behind and everything. She told him and he just chuckled. Yeah, but calling it karma is more simple. He heard sad Kaiyun noises after so he got her ice cream and she became very happy. Time skip. Izuku and Kaiyun arrived home as they went to their room. Kaiyun was the most tired and wanted to get to bed so nagged Izuku it. The bed isn't comfy if I can't feel your body, she said with a pout, as the blonde was still trying to figure out why Otsutsuki were like this. Kaiyun, my bed is covered in plushies and has 15 pillows around, with the most comfy material for the bed. How are you not comfy? He asked, and she looked at him and gave a smile. Because you're more comfy, she simply said as she hugged him and he blushed, still getting used to it all. They entered the room, with Izuku sighing as his eyes changed to his Mangekyo, with swirling coming out of his eyes, as several bags of clothes came out. He put all his new clothes away, Kaiyun did hers. She also tried to tease him by taking off her shirt, and only wearing a bra okay her upper body, but he was dense to know what she was trying. They went to bed with them drifting off to sleep, with his new-found lover resting on his chest. In space. Kaiyun, what did I do so wrong that made you turn out as such a disappointment? But that human shows promise. Maybe I will allow you new love as long as powerful children come out of it. At least you can be useful for something then, her father stated while looking at a picture of her as a child. For some unknown reason his heart hurt when he said stuff like this. Kaiyun, is it me and not you? Am I the failure here? By restricting what you could do make you like this? He spoke to himself this time as he sat down. Is this what humans call love? I can't expect something like that. Not after that. Not after what Kaguya did. His eyes became red with anger as he blew up a forest nearby. 2 years have passed since the events of Izuku's new life began. Izuku had become somewhat of a figure of peace already. Rumors around Mustafa say about him and how the world interacts with him. They say that he is a god who walks, as when he steps into a new place, the plant life around them becomes more beautiful. Izuku being outside is said to be a symbol of good luck for any who see him. Many have tried to find out more about him, or even what he is, his power, and if he is a god. The day went as any normal on this one. Izuku's long blonde hair waving in the gentle wind as he passed. The air becoming cleaner and softer as he walked around. Those who saw him took a moment to look at him. Some even saying the strand of his hair alone could make someone have an eternity of luck. When Izuku saw someone, he waved with a gentle smile, which caused the women and some men to blush. He would then walk away. His light blue eyes shined in the sun, and the reflection of the sun made them shine more than a diamond. As he came to his usual place to stop, he noticed a few people nearby. They seemed to be people who tried to get stuff about him, and he sighed. Wouldn't be the first time, he thought in his head. He then heard a few gasps as he heard one whispered saying that he was there. He entered the shop and went to find something, a necklace for Kayun. He spent a few minutes before he heard the door open again and then sensed the danger. He sensed the negative emotions radiating from him, so he knew he would have to do something. "Hey lady," he said while putting his hand in his pocket. "You better empty that register or else I might blow your fucking brains out." He pulled out a gun as Izuku felt people watching from outside, even a few calling the police. "PL please don't do anything. I need this MO money or else I won't be able to pay for my MO mother's treatment." She felt afraid as she pleaded, but the man pulled the gun go her face. "Well yeah, have a nice body and face. You could be my personal slut for the money then." He gave a sinister smile. "Now take out the money and then we can have." He was suddenly stopped. Actually, he wasn't even in the same position anymore. He was on the ground, knocked out while Izuku was over him. "You people disgust me," he said quietly before looking to the poor girl. "You said there is a problem with your mother, right?" She nodded and he gave his gentle smile. "Here, if I give you $200,000 then you should be able to do it fine. You should also treat your family with it as well." "So you don't have to," she said with tears in her eyes, but he simply out the money in he hands. "To me, making people happy is the best thing I can do. If I can do a bit of good then I won't hesitate, remember that," he told her, as he held up the necklace. "But how much is this?" "Free," she said with a smile. "As a gift from me." He gave a chuckle and put it in his pocket before picking the guy up and walking outside. Once he got outside, he heard cheers, as many clapped for him saving the day. The police arrived, he gave the villain to them, and in a yellow flash, Izuku was gone. One police officer looked at one of the others. "That kid is going far. If he doesn't become a hero then what is the world?" A other said. The girl who worked there looked out of the window and frowned slightly. "I never got his name." She then looked at the desk to see Izuku written on it, and she just stood there shocked. "How did I not see that there?" Japan, Mustafa Yagi residence. In a yellow flash, Izuku appeared outside of his house. He sighed because of what happened. He grew tired of these things but knew that he had to help people no matter what. He opened the door to see a sight he never thought he would see. Kayun was cooking, and not blowing up the house out of frustration, or the fact that she blew up the kitchen because she somehow made a bomb out of it. "Kayun, I didn't know you could cook," he said dumbfounded, while Satsuki looked back with a big smile. "Yep, and soon you will be wishing to have it all the time." She nodded after and he chuckled as he walked up and hugged her, with a peck on her lips. "You don't even realize your cuteness sometimes, Kei-chan," he whispered in her ear, making shivers go down her spine. "Didn't know you could flirt like this, Izuku," she whispered back and he gave a flirty smile. "I was an innocent boy when I was younger, but I grew up and I know how to do things like this now. You can thank the arrow fox for that." "Hey brat. It's not my fault," the fox screamed in his head, but ignored by Izuku. "Don't worry babe, I will just show you the power of my special wood release." Kayun blushed her so hard, it made the color red, wanting to send her to court for stealing its identity. "Izuku-kun," she said, while trying not to give in to his teasing. He put a finger over her mouth and kissed her cheek. "I am joking. I am not even going to bother with any of what I just said." He shrugged his shoulders as he got a playful punch from Kayun, who looked away. "Kayun, the food." She looked over and realized she needed to get back to it, while her boyfriend just laughed. "How do humans deal with this daily? It seems impossible," she shouted in frustration before feeling Izuku's arms wrapped around her. He placed his head on her left shoulder. "It becomes easy. Don't get so frustrated. You're doing fine." He gave a gentle smile with a kiss on her cheek and she smiled. After a few minutes, it was all done and prepared as Kayun waited patiently to see his reaction. Izuku took a bit of the food and ate it. A few seconds passed before Izuku reacted. He looked at Kaiyun and gave a sun-bright smile. You cook like a goddess. She blushed at the compliment and mentally gave herself wife points. They ate in silence before the news came on about a crime scene. A sludge villain was talking over Izumi and no heroes were helping. Izuku sighed and looked at his girlfriend, who gave a pout but a nod. I won't be gone for long, he told her as he disappeared in a swirl of leaves. It's time to show people why they consider me a god, he mumbled. Japan, Mustafa, sludge villain crime scene. Izumi was crying as the sludge took over her. She felt so helpless, so scared, so vulnerable. Her thoughts then went to one thing. Is this what you felt like, Oni-chan? The sludge laughed, before a kind and soft voice was heard. Shinra Tensei. The sludge went flying into the back alleyway, as Izumi was sent with it. Bansho Tenin. She was pulled away and into the arms of her brother, which made her completely shocked. Izuku floated down as many gasped. Something said was. Is it that guy? He looks so much more than what is said. Is he that god guy? What quirk do you think he has? Wait, that's illegal. Oni. You lost the right to call me that. He didn't even look at her as he said that. Her heart hurt, and she felt like crying but didn't want to be seen as weak. Izuku looked down to the villain and smiled. Now then, let's see how good slime is at dancing. He spoke as he simply dodged a part of the sludge. Y'all make a better meat shield, the slime said, but Izuku scoffed. Sorry, but I don't let myself be turned into a hentai scene, he simply said as he then teleported above it. You're boring, he simply said, and the villain screamed out in anger and tried to get him. It looked Izuku in the eye. Have a good sleep, Tsukiyomi. His eyes turned to his EMS, as the sludge turned into a fat man. He was arrested and Izuku floated down. Kid, that was incredibly ill. He was cut off by a perfected timing from someone. That young man was incredibly heroic. The booming voice of All Might was heard as many looked over at the hero. You have the heart of a hero, and that is all that matters. I say the boy is a hero. Many of the crowd started saying that he was a hero, while Izuku gave him why really look, and his dad just nodded. He walked up and simply said, See you at home, Old Might. He smirked after as he knew his dad really didn't like the nickname. Izuku now had 10 months before the entrance exam and didn't know what to do. Well, that was the case before he gained a few more memories, but this time of Hashirama and Madara. Hashirama. Madara. He heard from the memory, as he saw Kurama covered in the Susanoo fighting Hashirama on his ultimate Justu, Senpo Mokutan. Shin Susenju. He watched as the Justice completely destroyed Madara, as he thought. That's one super broken Justu. Tell me about it. Indra said in his head, remembering when Ashura did the same thing to him. He also saw their whole lives, as he realized how the world could turn out like if not careful. But one thing made him very curious. A guy named Danzo came up quite a lot in his memories of the past, but the one thing that shocked him was his last name, Shimura. Tu-san. He called out to the sage, who hummed in response. Do I relation to Danzo? Sadly yes, he is your ancestor from the time of the shinobi, he told Izuku, as said blonde looked down. He gave a chuckle as the sage looked at Izuku. My ancestor is Danzo. Wonder what his reaction would be if he found out I had Uchiha blood. Indra smirked slightly as he could imagine it. Izuku got home after and prepared for the entrance exam by doing what the thing he did best. Eat a lot of ramen and katsudon. Time skip, 10 months, location Japan, Mustafa, UA. Izuku and Kaiyun were already at the entrance hall, as they lived there. They talked to each other before the exam started and had to separate. The written test was easy. As someone who was taught by Nizu, all the questions were super easy. He and Kaiyun finished as they handed their tests and left to the other hall. They had quite a lot of time to kill, so they decided to have a very long makeout session, with a bit of teasing. After others came in and saw the little session, the males felt pissed that such a cute girl would make out with Izuku, but didn't do anything because Izuku was incredibly hot and could easily destroy them, after seeing what happened to the sludge villain. President Mike finally came out once all the examens were out. He had a big, goofy smile okay his face. What's up, my little listeners? He got no response and someone coughed. Well, I am here to tell you about this part of the exam. So can I get a yeah? He got no response again, but Izuku felt bad for him, so he decided to give one, and everyone looked at him. Thank you, examen. He saw the number, which was just replaced by the next Nizu. He gulped at it and just said, Thank you, Izuku. Now then, this part consistent of villain points. The more bad guys you beat up, the more points you get. There are 4 robots, the 1-pointer, the 2-pointer, the 3-pointer, and... He was then interrupted by a blue-haired teen. Excuse me, but you got to mention about the 4th robot. Everyone looked at him as if he was on some serious drugs. For the greatest heroes school in the world, this is unacceptable. He then turned towards Izuku and Kayun. And you too. You both keep making out and distracting. He was then stopped as he saw both eyes on him. A menacing aura was around them, and he gulped. Tenya Ida? Long-haired man said, scaring the blue-haired boy that he knew that. You come from a family of heroes, yes? You live such a wealthy life compared to most people here and brag about it. You're nothing but a child with a big mouth who is trying to be his older brother. News flash, you're not, and the only reason why you're complaining is because you wish you could do something like this, but you don't have a girlfriend. He finished as Ida was angry and wanted to speak out, but he was stopped by a genjusto of seeing something he wished to unsee. He saw a giant beast with a long arms for tails coming after him. While Ida was being traumatized, Mike went on about the rest of the exam, and then they were given their exam zones. They were both in separate battlegrounds, with Izuku in B and Kayun in C. Izuku got prepared by wearing his training attire. He wore a black full-bodied suit with 9 magatoma on his back, colored blue. He also had a pair of black combat sandals on, with seals around his legs and arms for training purposes. Once he got out, he saw the girls have blushes on their face because of his body. The suit hugged his body, showing his trained body, same as Madara's. He simply looked away, not caring, as he then saw a girl who was incredibly nervous. He wanted to help by a hand went on his shoulder, so he decided to show why Nizu is his teacher. Before the blue-haired boy could speak, he saw the sadistic smile on Izuku's face, causing him go fall over. Listen here and listen carefully. You are not the top dog around here, so don't bark orders around, especially at the top dog. And with that, he left to the girl. Hey, you look nervous. He approached her with his sunlight smile. She nodded while looking at him with a blush. There is no need to worry. No matter what can happen, you can do great. Do you have a special someone? This question caught her off guard, but she did respond. Why, yeah, my mom and dad, she told him, while looking at him with curiosity. Well, then use the power you get from them to use. No matter what, as long as you have someone, you will be at your peak of power. You can't lose as long as you fight for them. She blushed and nodded, feeling her confidence rise. He then saw the gate starting to open as he disappeared in a yellow flash. Everyone was stunned until they heard Mike. There is no starting time in real battles. Go, go, go! They all rushed out, seeing detoid robots everywhere. Izuku seemed to fly in the wind, as he detoid robots easily. He counted in his head how many points he got, as one tried to get him. He simply ducked under the attack and punched the machine in the chest area, destroying it. Japan, Mustafa, Yue, teacher hidden room. What a promising batch this year, said Midnight as she watched all the examines. I agree, the Flame Hero said as he watched the screens. 2 have caught my eye, Ectoplasm said as he pointed to Izuku and Kayun. Those 2. Izuku Yagi and Kayun Otsutsuki, Nizu said with a smirk. Izuku is the most powerful out of them and has never shown his true power, but what Kayun has said, it's terrifying. He simply said as he watched his student land on the ground as a large amount of lighting came out of him, short-circuiting all the robots near him. Yagi? You mean All Might's kid? The number 5 hero, Mirko, asked. Then I would like to see his full power, she said, but also had another thought. Maybe I could take him under my wing after the sports festival. Nizu looked at a big red button as he smirked. He felt something pull him towards it, and he pressed the button. This will show his power. Everyone looked one as they saw the 0-pointer. With Izuku. Can you shut up? He heard Indra shout in his head. You can't admit that Ika Paradise is the best book of all time. Ashura shouted while Izuku became really confused. What's Ika Paradise? Can I read it? He asked as he then heard Ashura start running from an angry Indra. My Otuto will not become a perv, the long-haired Otsutsuki shouted. Suddenly the ground shook, as the 0-pointer came from the ground. Wait a second. Did Shikaka fart? Izuku asked, looking around and seeing the earthquake. Hey brat. My farts aren't that bad, the sand raccoon shouted out. Think again, Koka said out loud, as the rest of the tailed beasts agreed. Help! He saw the brunette from earlier shout as she was stuck under rubble. "Hey, I know what I am going to do today," he said with a smile. "I am going to teach you a pain." He then appeared in front of the 0-pointer and put his arm up, as his eyes turned into the Rinnegan. Atsuki Satairu. Kaminoikari Atsutsuki style. Rage of God. The 0-pointer then crumbled to pieces as a violent storm ragged behind it. In the teacher's room. "What was that?" Midnight said, scared, while Nizu chuckled. Atsuki Satairu. Kaminoikari. It's an attack from a different Izuku, who lives in Tei's Shadow Realm. It launches an attack that you can see is incredibly deadly. The others were shocked while Toshinori had a smile on his face. He was thinking proudly about his son. "I can only create a tornado with my most powerful attack, and yet you can do it without trying. You truly are the most powerful." Well, Toshinori has changed, as well. Izuku, having the sun crest on his right hand, was able to rebuild his lost organs and restore him to his full power. He no longer looked like a skeleton but looked to be in his early 20s. Izuku sighed as he looked how easy the fight was. "I know I fight for peace, but I need a challenge sometimes," he said to himself, while he looked down at the girl. "Need help?" "Yes, and thank you," she said with a blush, and he jumped back. Bansho Tenin. The rubble was pulled towards him, and the detoid. "Can you walk?" "I sprained my ankle, but..." He put a hand on her ankle and a green chakra appeared, and as her ankle was healed. "Thank you again," she said with tears, and he just smiled. It's what a hero does. He then saw a 0-pointer fly into the sky and his sweat dropped. She could at least not make them fly into the air. "Izuku, you literally ears yours from existence," Hagoromo said as Izuku rubbed the back of his neck with a chuckle. "I forgot about that." And with that he left the exam because Mike called the exam off. He simply appeared by Kaiyun and grabbed her waist, and teleported back home. They decided that snuggling with each other was needed, more Kaiyun, and they did. In space. "Lord Hanshiki," Atsutsuki said to the man sitting on the throne. The man had a simple white cloak on with a black full-bodied suit underneath. "We will be at Earth in 3 weeks. "Good. Soon that man whom my daughter has fallen for will meet the power of a true Atsutsuki." He smiled twistly as he waited for his arrival. A week has passed since the entrance exam. Izuku was sleeping as Kaiyun slept on his chest. Izuku slowly opened his eyes to see the new day hitting him like a truck. The sun rays clashing on his fair skin. His eyes shone like a cave full of gems. He slowly came fully awake as he felt Kaiyun sleeping on his chest. He smiled and he gave a peck her forehead. He then felt her move as she woke up. "Morning, sleeping beauty," he said with his signature smile. "Aizu, you always find ways to call me new things." She giggled and he rolled his eyes. "There isn't enough words in any language to describe your beauty," the blue-haired girl had steam come out of her ears before she looked away with a pout. "I could say the same thing for you being handsome," she said back while he chuckled. "Maybe with me, but a goddess like you then." He came to her ear. "There will never be, my little fox." He whispered in her ear as she became a tomato. Sasuke would be very confused. "Why you see can't say things like that?" She stuttered out while he gave a flirty smirk. "Aren't you the one always saying about wife points?" He then hugged her by the waist. "I wonder about mom points." Kaiyun blew up in a blush as she fainted while thinking about kids. He chuckled nervously. "That hasn't happened in a long time." He spoke while he heard the laugh of Son Goku. "You completely knocked out the poor girl." He continued to laugh, as Izuku then glared at him until Kaiyun woke up. "Izuku, you weren't serious, were you?" she asked with a huge blush. "I just like seeing your cute reactions, so I do it." He then got a playful punch from her, while she also pouted. "It's not very nice," she said, and he poked her cheek. "Not for you, but for me." He gave a smile that stole her heart. "I get to see my beautiful goddess be even more cute." She blushed but looked away with a pout again. Suddenly the door was bursted open by Toshinori. He had a huge smile on his face as he looked at the two lovers. Kaiyun locked in Izuku's arms with a huge blush her face. "Did I walk in on something?" he asked with a nervous chuckle, while both teens became flustered. "No!" they both shouted at him while he nodded his head before coughing in his hand. "Right, anyway, I am here to say that you both are in UA." He smiled at the teens while they both had their own, before the principal of the school came out of nowhere. "And I have a proposal for you both," he said cheerfully. "I would like for the both of you to be the heads of classes that belong in the first year." "What do you mean?" Kaiyun asked, while looking at Izuku's abs. You will have the same authority as a teacher, just like Big 3 expect I have a name for you guys already. They looked on while he held a piece of paper up. The Kages. It was shocking for them, but you don't know that Nizu knew about the time of Shinobi and so did Tashinori. How? Well, Izuku told them and Hagoromo told him too. Kaiyun liked it while Izuku smiled at the name. It's nice, but can we get changed now? Izuku asked and they nodded and walked out. Izuku-kun, I sense my father coming to Earth, Kaiyun said while looking down. We will beat him. We will have to. He gave her a peck on the lips and she smiled. Izuku, she said while kissing his cheek. Can we enjoy today as a couple? You don't have to ask. He gave a smile after and then got ready to change. I heard there is a new movie. Want to check it out? He asked as she gave him a soft smile. Matters what the movie is, she said with a bit of sass. Well, it is something you would like. He then went to the bathroom and she looked on while thinking about one thing. You didn't tell me the name. Wait, I take showers first. She ran in as she saw his shirt off. He then gave a smirk. Is someone feeling for a different type of fun? She blushed but then gave an angry pout. No. I need a shower and I am the one who goes first, she said, and he rolled his eyes. Kaiyun, we take showers together because you don't trust the water. She became embarrassed and looked away. Of course. Who would trust that rat devil? He chuckled before hugging her. Kaiyun, you can be honest with me. What is it? She tried to look away but he held her face. She sighed with a pink stain on her cheeks. She tried to get out but couldn't. Kaiyun, is it your body having a little problem? Let me guess, you can't hold back your urges anymore. She slowly nodded with a blush and he chuckled. He cupped her face and kissed her lips. Kaiyun, do you want it? She didn't answer but slowly nodded and then they had a little fun. Nizu could hear the noises with his advantaged hearing and only shook his head. Tashinori could hear a faint sound and cried proudly for his son. Time skip. First day. Izuku and Kaiyun were sat in class waiting for others. Kaiyun sat on his lap, with her snuggling into his chest, while being locked by Izuku's arms. They were actually asleep and they didn't care who would see. Eventually people starting to come in and they all saw the couple. A grape-haired boy was jealous and so sat near them, while cursing Izuku for being so handsome. Then came in his past life, and the first thing they did was go up to Izuku. Izumi tried to wake him up but felt a demonic pressure coming off them, her so once brother. The two other girls were jealous because they liked him, but he only had eyes for his little fox, Kaiyun's nickname because of her horns. They both woke up and saw them. Katsuki tried to act tough but remembered his arm being totally detoyed, so didn't bother. Shoto, on the other hand, grabbed Kaiyun's shoulder and then found himself in the sky. Listen, I don't want any of you here, he said to them. So I give a simple choice. Annoy me and suffer or live and become a hero. Your choice. I'm your sis. She received a glare with a crimson glow from Izuku and she stepped away. Scared was an understatement, she was terrified of those eyes. Then a saving grace came into the class. If you're here to make friends then you can leave. A tired voice said as the sleep-deprived, coffee-addicted, cat lover, and depressed hero came in. Everyone sat down while he saw Kaiyun and Izuku not change. He also remembered that Izuku was taught by the most evil rat to ever exist, so he decided not to bother, and the fact that he knew they were both godlike beings. I am your homeroom teacher, Shoyuta Aizawa. Now put these on and get to outside. Kaiyun and Izuku were then seen walking out and no one saw them move. Why are you waiting? I thrive on your fears, so you better start running. He gave his shot-eating grin and they all ran out of the class. In the changing rooms, Izuku was changing before he was stopped by a red-haired boy. Hey, my name is Eijiro Kirishima. I just wanted to know how you work out, he said with a toothy grin, and Izuku smiled softly. Well, Kirishima-san, I work out with my girlfriend basically daily. It's a nice way to do something we both like. He then put his hair in a ponytail. And I see your workout too. What do you say about working out together sometimes? Kirishima cried tears and said manly before agreeing. Hey guys, look, a grape-haired little shit said. This hole leads to the girls' changing room. I will get to see that blue-haired girls. Suddenly a dark aura was filled in the room as he slowly looked to see Izuku looking at him with his Mangekyo Sharingan out. Say another word and I will make sure you die a slow and painful death, he said so coldly it scared Kaiyun in the other room, because Izuku is always a kind, happy, and joyful guy. The grape slowly nodded before Izuku then walked over and put his finger at the hole, as he used chakra to fill it and make a barrier there. He put on the UAP uniform. The uniform has a pair of dark blue pants with white vertical lines going up the legs and a dark blue short sleeve shirt with white lines that form the letters U and A. He then left and walked to the training ground B, where they were to meet with Aizawa. On his way, Kayun joined him and they talked about some things, but it drifted to a conversation about how Madara nearly ended the world of shinobi. Once they got there, they saw their hobo teacher in his sleeping bag, and so they took the chance and started to have a little picnic. Others finally came out and saw them both just finish their little lunch, and with Kayun resting on his shoulder. "Finally you all are here," Aizawa said with a frown. "Unlike these two, you were late. Being on time is very important in a hero's life. If you are late, how many people could be injured or even dead?" He scolded them and then looked at the couple. "And where did you even get the food? Where does Niza get his tea?" The blonde asked with curiosity, and the black-haired man just didn't answer, as no one knew. "Anyway, today we will be doing a quirk test to see how good you are," the teacher said while getting out of his sleeping bag. "What about orientation?" the girl Izuku saved said, and Izuku just sighed. "What the point of that?" Aizawa said. "My class, my rules, so I decide what I do for my class, and you just have to go with it," he simply said, and then looked at Izuku. "Yagi, you had the highest score in UA history with 349 points. You held back though in the entrance exam, so don't hold back this time." He threw him the ball. "Stand in the circle and use your quirk, then through the ball. I don't care how, just use your full strength and stay in the circle." Izuku nodded and got the ball while ignoring an angry bomb. He got into the circle and Kayun sensed his chakra. "He's going to show off," she thought while backing away. "Even if I am Otsutsuki, there is a reason why our clan fears the Sage of Six Paths." She looked at everyone and then gave her teacher a smile. "You want to get covered, by the way." They all looked at her, and Izumi's gang didn't bother. Izuku was thinking to himself, and then smirked. "Hey everyone." He heard everyone in his mindscape respond. "Let's go full out." "You sure?" Hamura said, while Indra and Ashura had a similar idea, but Hagoromo. "Why not? It would also make the new threat acknowledge him more." They all agreed with the old sage and infused all their chakra into him. Izuku started to glow as all the chakra flowed in him. The wind picked up, the sky became brighter, the plants all seemed to have more life, and the trees danced. Izuku's skin turned pale and even more fair. He grew a horn that came from his forehead, and a white cloak formed around him. "It would appear that all our chakra has the same effect as the 10 tails," Kurama said as the other tailed beasts all nodded. 6 orbs appeared behind Izuku. The cloak became a white, full-length kimono with a pattern of 6 black magatoma around a high collar. On the back of his kimono was a black ring eye marking with a pattern of 9 magatoma arranged in 3 rows of 3. Beneath it, under his kimono, was a black full-bodied suit. His hair became a brighter shade of blonde, almost reflecting sun rays at them. His eyes was filled with 3 ring-like patterns and a purple color. The wind blew away from him, the whole school shook under the pressure, as all of Mustafa felt the effects of Izuku's power. A bright light came off of him and shot into the sky. Any clouds were pushed far away. His ripple's eyes also gained a flower pattern in them, showing off the Tensigen and Rinnegan. Soon the dust cleared as they saw his transformation complete as he stood in all his glory. Kayun was in complete shock. This was beyond what she had seen, and she trembled under his new power, falling to her knees. "In space. What is this chakra?" Otsutsuki shouted, while staring at the direction of Earth. "It's beyond any of ours and nearing Henshiki-sama," a other said while the blue-haired Otsutsuki smiled a craze from that made all shudder under it. "Finally!" he shouted with pure joy. "Someone on my level. This will be a battle that I will savor forever." His once normal Byakugan eyes was filled with a glowing red color that shocked the whole planet they were on, at the time. Back with Izuku. Izuku looked at the ball in his hands and simply threw it. But it went so far it made the whole world shake. "What is this power?" A pink-skinned girl in pure disbelief. "Is this the power of a god?" A lighting bold-haired boy asked. "This is inane. He is even more stronger than All Might." In a secret room. "This is problematic," a potato-head man, wearing a suit, said. "It would appear that this is even more stronger than I could ever imagine. I should be wary of this power." Back with Izuku. "So how did I do?" Izuku asked with a smile, and everyone looked at him in disbelief, but then Kaiyun got up and Izuku gulped. What were you thinking, Baka? She scolded him but then looked at him up and down. I know you're the new sage of 6 paths, but you could have not shown this yet, she said, and he rolled his eyes. Well, I didn't even know I could do this, and if I think correctly. He then returned to his old self. Then I can just get out of it. She then gave a pout but hugged him. Don't say things like that again, she said, snuggling into his chest. So, I don't want to ruin your moment, but we still have a whole test to do, Aizawa said while hiding the pure shock he had in him. The tests were then all done with Katsuki believing he was still better than Izuku, and then got beaten in everything by the new sage. Izuku on every test did the best. It got to the point that Aizawa just gave up on doing Kaiyun's and Izuku's tests, so they got to sit out and do their usual stuff. When they were all done, it showed the scores. 1. Izuku Yagi. 2. Kaiyun Otsutsuki. 3. Momo Yaoyorozu. 4. Izumi Shimura. 5. Shoto Todoroki. 6. Sakura Todoroki, she is as useless as you think. 7. Katsuki Bakugo. 8. Katsumi Bakugo. 23. Minoru Mineta. No! I haven't touched Kaiyun's body yet. He ran to her but was not only tied up by Aizawa, but given serious brain damage, because of Izuku. Okay everyone, go back to class while I put this criminal to prison. They did. In class, I think everyone should introduce ourselves. The kid, known as Tenya Ida, said. Everyone agreed and went in form of the class and introduced themselves. It was then Katsuki's turn. Listen up you extras! The bomb boy shouted. I am Katsuki Bakugo, next number 1 hero. Actually, I think Yagi-san is going to be it. The frog girl, more commonly known as Tsuyu Ajui, said. No way that Deku is more better than me. He literally shocked the world. Rock girl, also known as Kyokujiro, said. And he didn't even try that much and still got number 1 in the test. Lighting boy, you know him as Denkai Kamamari, said to Mr. Explosion. Next up was Katsumi Bakugo, who was more calm than her twin. Hello, I am Katsumi Bakugo. My likes are my friends and family. My dislikes are villains, and my dream is. She looks at Izuku. To become the number 1 hero. Next was Icicle Twin 1. My name is Shoto Todoroki. And that was it. After him was Icicle Twin 2. My name is Sakura Todoroki. My likes are my family and friends and a certain someone. My dislikes are bad people, and my dream. She also looks at Izuku. Is to be a hero like my mom. And then up was Izumi. My name is Izumi Shimura. My likes are my mom, friends, and my Nii-san. My dislikes are villains. My dream is to become the number 1 hero. Whispers. And to marry my Oni-chan. Kaiyun was next, and she looked at everyone before smiling. Hello, I am Kaiyun Otsutsuki. My likes are my boyfriend and his family. My dislikes is my father and clan, and my dream is to become a hero, wife, and mother with the man of my dreams. She then went back to her spot while Izuku got up and well. My name is Izuku Yagi. My likes. I have them. My dislikes. I won't tell you in my dream. That's private. Everyone's sweat dropped, except Kaiyun, and all had one thought. We only learned his name. After that Aizawa came back in and told them they could go home. Izuku and Kaiyun did go home, and on the way felt the wrath of Recovery Girl because of Izuku's power. After that, I was a normal day for the young Yagi. As normal as it can get. Somewhere unknown. Hagoromo, Hamura. A blue-haired woman said with venom. You will pay. The day started as any other with the Yagis. Pure and simple chaos. Kaiyun was trying to cook but got pissed and blew up the kitchen. Izuku was fixing said kitchen, and Tashinori was trying to find his old hero costume. The kitchen is evil! Kaiyun shouted at her boyfriend, while his sweat dropped. Kaiyun, you tried to cook the microwave in the oven. She then simply stood, with her mouth open in disbelief. But it said to cook with the microwave, so I put it in the oven to cook it with it. She said with her head down low, and the blonde only chuckled. You're so cute, my little fox. She just looked up at him, and then saw him fix the kitchen. Don't worry, we all make mistakes. Mistakes are just lessons in disguise, and so we can learn from it. You're not human, so you're not used to these things. I am not mad at my little fox. She had a smile on her face and nodded her head, happily. They shared a kiss and Tashinori finally came down. Mr. Yagi. Tashinori put his hand up. How many times have I said that you can call me Dad? You're basically married to my son." She blushed to crimson. It made the Sharingan look pink. "I'm married to Izuku," she said and then squealed. "Then we will have kids and then live happily ever after," she rambled to herself, while the older blonde chuckled and the younger one just sighed. "Kaiyun." She stopped and looked in Izuku's eyes. "Be careful or I might accidentally make you a mom." She then fainted and both blondes chuckled. "So what happened to the kitchen?" Tashinori asked, and Izuku rubbed the back of his neck. "Well, I told her that 2 of the things need to be microwaved and be put in the oven, so she thought you had to put them all together. We nearly had a massive explosion, but she blew it up instead," Izuku said, and the hero just shook his head with a smirk. "I just can't wait to see how my grandchildren will be like." He saw his son's face turn red, one of the few times it happens. "Dad. Sorry," he said with a chuckle and went to the teacher's lounge, while Izuku had to get up his peacefully sleeping girlfriend. Rebenda also slept on the couch, somehow slept through the chaos. Time skip. Class 1A homeroom. Izuku and Kaiyun were there first again, and so decided not to fall asleep this time but to have a complete makeout session in there. The doors opened as their classmates came in and saw their little love session. Many girls blushed at Izuku and how gentle he was with Kaiyun, as he kissed her lips and went to her neck, marking her as his. Some boys were downright jealous at the beauty with Izuku. Sometimes they would hear a noise come out of her mouth, and they would be even more jealous. They all went to their seats and saw the 2 lovers stop and look at everyone. "You know it's rude to watch us and stay quiet." Izuku then got up and walked over to the teacher's desk. "And Sensei, it's time to wake up." Aizawa got up with his caterpillar form and looked at everyone. "Get to your seats before I decide to expel you." They all did, as he told them to do, and waited for him to speak. "Today, class, we will have a full day. Here are your timetables and don't be late to any of your classes or else." He gave his sadistic grin and they all nodded. Izuku and Kaiyun were asleep. Suddenly, the door was blown away and entered a man who looked like Izuku. "Sorry Aizawa, but Nizu wants them," he said with a nervous smile. "Fine, Tashinori." He then looked at the couple inside. "Love birds. Wake up." They both slowly did and looked at him, while staying in the same position. Kaiyun on his lap with Izuku's arms around her waist, with their heads on each other's shoulders. "Oh hey Dad," Izuku said, while yawning. "Guess Uncle Nizu wants to meet us." He got up and him and Kaiyun walked out of the class with Kaiyun on his back. Piggyback ride because she loves to rest on him. "You're Izuku's dad," the class shouted and he nodded. "He's also my dad," Izumi whispered, while glaring at her dad. She didn't get why he left Inko and so hated him. "Also, I just wanted to tell you all. He has the iconic smile of All Might on his face." "Here we go," Aizawa said, rolling his eyes. "I am here." He buffed up and stood in front of the class was the number 1 hero, All Might. "No way! It's All Might!" Most of the class shouted. "He looks so cool in person," some said. "Wait, Yagi-san's dad is All Might?" The rock girl shouted. "And also." He then dashed away. "I need the bathroom." And he disappeared, while Aizawa then looked at everyone and yawned. "Enjoy math." And he left knowing no one liked math, especially algebra. With Izuku and Kaiyun. "Izuku," Kaiyun said, and he HN'd in response. "I can't find a nickname for you," she said with sad eyes, and he gave a sunlight smile. She then thought of one. "I know! Sunshine," she said with a big smile, but then had a better one. "No. What about Nico?" "Little Fox, they mean the same thing." She gave an embarrassed chuckle and they continued their way to Nizu's office. When they got there, they saw the room having a menacing aura around it. It didn't bother them because it was always like this. They opened the door and saw the principal stabbing a voodoo doll. "Well, hello there." He put the doll behind him. "Who pissed you off?" Izuku asked simply, and the rat devil just looked at a photo and then said, "Someone who didn't believe that I was a god." He simply said, walked to his desk, and sat down. "Now I brought you both here for a very important reason. I have decided that you both can choose your hero names already and also can gain experience as heroes, as you are the best out of this school and I think you are ready." "Hero names, huh?" Izuku said and then smiled. "Luckily I thought of this. The Sage Hero." 6 Paths. Izuku gave a happy smirk after, and Kaiyun liked it, and Nizu nodded with a smile. "Well then my name will be the Goddess Hero." "Yokai!" she said with a happy smile, and Izuku liked it. Nizu gave a chuckle. Even you don't know this, but Nizu and Kayun have a father and daughter relationship, meaning if you try hurt the Otsutsuki, pray that the rock god devil gives you a quick death. I like them. Design your final suits and I will have them ready for today's battle training. The two lovers nodded and left, while Nizu looked at the design with a small smile. I guess Hagoromo has yet to tell you about how we had tea parties. Izuku and Kayun left the office and bumped into the smiling hero, All Might. Ha ha, my boy, he said while putting Izuku into a hug. I bet you choose your hero names. They both nodded and Kayun gave a gentle smile. Mr. Dad. Toshinori smiled and Izuku just knew that she added wife points to herself when she was allowed to call him Dad. Izuku's hero name is cool, but I don't know about mine. Toshinori deflated and gave a gentle smile. I bet it's not bad but awesome. She smiled and prepared herself just in case he laughed. My hero name is the goddess hero. Yokai. She looked at Toshinori, who gave a proud smile. It definitely shows how cute you are with the yokai part. Kayun smiled. Only Izuku could make her flustered when it came to cute stuff said to her. That's what I thought, Izuku said, and the girl gained a pink dye on her cheeks. She is already the cutest and sexist hero. The Otsutsuki blew up in blush and thought about his words before fainting. It doesn't take much, huh? The blonde man stated, and the smaller blonde nodded. Sometimes I just have to say kids, just kids, and she faints. Am I some sort of weakness to her? He asked, confused at this point, and Toshinori rolled his eyes. I may not be experienced when it comes to this, but it just means she likes you a lot. She didn't faint when we did the deed though. Instead, I was nearly drained of energy, he told the hero, while wondering how long they went for it. Yeah, I know, I heard it, the number one hero said with a smirk, and the younger Yagi just sighed. Knew I should have requested soundproof walls, he said under his breath, but the older male just chuckled nervously. They are. Izuku stopped in his tracks as the roar of laughter in his mind was everywhere. You guys were so loud the soundproof walls couldn't handle it, Kurama shouted in his mind, while laughing with the others. Izuku just picked Kayun up and then went to class. He didn't want to deal with it right now because he found embarrassing. A few hours later, Izuku and Kayun were eating on the cafeteria with their little kitten, Rabenda. Said kitten was sleeping on Kayun's lap with large purrs coming from her as the Otsutsuki lady stroked her. You know my Nico, Kayun said with a bright smile. I hope one day we find peace and then we could start a family. She didn't blush this time and Izuku smiled as well. Kayun, one day, I will make sure that we will have that future. She smiled and kissed his cheek. And you, my little kitten, he said as he rubbed the back of Rabenda's ear. You will just enjoy life even more. The cat meowed and gently bit his hand. The door suddenly opened to the roof and entered the retarded union. Sakura, Katsumi, and Izumi glared at Kayun, while Katsuki and Shoto glared at Izuku. Hey Deck. He then found himself in a different world. He was attached to a cross, there was blood under him and a moon with Izuku's Mangekyo Sharingan on it. Hello Katsuki Bikugo. The ash blonde looked and saw Izuku with a sword. Welcome to my world, the world of Tsukiyomi. Here you will experience death for over 72 hours and I will be the one delivering the killing blow. Izuku's eyes were of his Mangekyo and he was covered by a black shadow, that only his eyes were the thing that could be identified. From that point on he stabbed him over and over, each one having a unique cut to it. Even at points he allowed him to bleed to death. When his time finally up, he fell unconscious, scaring the other four. Do you see what happened to him? Izuku asked with a sinister smirk appearing around his face. No, but I did. Soon you all will experience pain, but yet not equal to what you had done to me. Leave before I make the gen just a reality, he said in a cold, harsh voice that scared them all away. Kayun had a happy smile, but Rabenda was sticking her tongue out at them. Well, it's time to go back to lesson. Kayun, do you want to talk about something else before we leave? She just shook her head and embraced him, accidentally falling asleep. He too accidentally fell asleep. They were asleep together, so they may have skipped a lesson. Time skip. Izuku and Kayun finally got to class, with everyone looking at them. They saw them both having massive smiles and wanted to know what was going on, but then the door went flying. I am coming through the door like a normal person, he shouted as he got in. Dad, that's far from normal. Izuku stated the obvious, and the hero rubbed the back of his head. Alright, he said, then proceed to cough Tino into his hand. Today I will be your teacher for battle training. Ida then put his hand up. Sir, we can't condone Izuku and Kaiyun's lateness, he shouted while the hero sighed. What is the last lesson anyway? He asked, and Ida then did robotic movements. It was geography, sir. Good job, son. He patted Izuku's back and everyone's sweat dropped. Sir, he was. Listen, I did the same thing when I was here. All Might said and then clicked a button. Anyway, here are your hero suits. Izuku and Kaiyun spotted theirs and grabbed them. They disappeared to get changed after that. Izuku was the first to open his and smiled. His suit looked the same as his Six Paths form. Kaiyun's looked like her Otsutsuki outfit. They got changed while also placing bets on who they would fight. Kaiyun smiled at him. I want to fight your sister. Little fox, you can't kill her. Izuku patted her head and she pouted. She hurt you, my Nico. I will make sure they will pay. She had determination in her eyes and he gently placed his lips on hers. I love the fact that you want to hurt them for me, but my little fox. He wrapped his arms around her. I will make sure they will suffer if they even dare touch you. They will know. Nico, stop saying you will teach them pain. She pouted again and he chuckled. Sorry, natural reaction, he said while having one thought. But I can't stop. Maybe I should stop remembering all of Pain's quotes. Izuku-kun, I swear if you planning to make them no pain then. She gained a sweet smile. I will let you know the feeling of not hugging me for a week. Wait, you can't do that. Izuku shouted in fear, with her smile only growing. Oh, I can. And I will also make Rabenda learn how to call you Baka. She saw him smirk and she was confused. Why are you smirking? Because I know you would suffer as well without me sleeping with you. Actually, you can't sleep without me. I can. She shouted and looked away. You sure? He said with a teasing smile. I wasn't the one who screamed. Okay, I get it. The blue-haired girl was flustered with an angry pout. They got changed after, but still having Izuku being told off by his little fox. Time skip. Izuku and Kaiyun were running a bit late and Izuku knew a perfect excuse for the moment. When they got there, they saw everyone's eyes dart to them. Some pervs drooled over Kaiyun, while the girls blushed at Izuku. Why were you late? Ida shouted and Izuku rolled his eyes. Sorry, but we got lost on the path of life. Everyone anime fell to the ground in pure shock. Anyway, Dad, it's time to start the lesson, is it not? Yes, it is. He shouted and everyone looked ready for the test, unless they were the lovebirds who knew exactly everything, more or less because the hero was very easy to understand. We will be doing a heroes v villains match, and in this, the hero team has to get the bomb or capture the villains. If not done and instead lose, they fail the test. Ida was going to put his hand up, but didn't because the shadow stopped him from doing it. The blonde hero rolled the lottery device and the teams were picked. Team A, Yagi Izuku and Ishido Mina. Team B, Bakugo Katsuki and Tenya Ida. Team C, Todoroki Shoto and Shimura Izumi. Team D, Otsutsuki Kaiyun and Yayoro Uzumomo. Team E, Todoroki Sakura and Bakugo Katsumi. Rest are canon. The first fight will be between Team A as the villains and Team D as the heroes. All the students could feel the smiles of the two lovers and some shivered. Izuku looked at his girlfriend with a massive smile. May the best Otsutsuki win. Oh my Kiko, you will lose, she said with confidence and then looked into his eyes. Let's have the fight we didn't have all those years ago. Oh my little fox, the blonde said with a smirk. There will be no UA after this then. Izuku and Mina were outside the building, waiting to be let in. Mina was slightly afraid because of Izuku's smirk. Hey Yagi, she finally said and he turned round. Do you have a plan? Kaiyun is far too strong for you, so I will deal with her. You deal with Yayorozu, he told her and she nodded. So have you and Kaiyun done anything more than making out? She asked and Izuku turned to her. HN. What? HN. What does HN mean? HN means HN. Is it some weird language? HN. Answer me, god damn it. HN. Ah. In observation room. Sir, do you know what that means? Asked Uraka and the blonde hero turned around and shook his head. It would appear that he understands a language far beyond our understanding. Back with Izuku. Is there subtitles? HN. Stop doing that. HN. Say one HN again and then you're going to regret it. Izuku looked at her, smiled and then got a tomato out of nowhere and ate it. How did you even do that? Only people who know the way of the HN shall understand. Izuku told her, and she stared blankly at him. Is it some weird cult? Did you just say the way of the HN is just some weird cult? Izuku said with his Sharingan blazing. Inside Izuku's mindscape. Lies and deceit. She deserves death. Indra shouted with him, screaming insult after insult. Nisan, the language is weird, Ashura told him, receiving a glare from the other male. How long do I have before you start chasing me? 5 seconds. Okay, see ya. The blonde Otsutsuki ran as fast as he could, while being chased by Uchiha. Outside his mindscape. Okay, so you understand the way of the HN yet? The blonde asked, while the alien-like girl and she was super confused. Where do I even start? She looked at the book he gave her, which all the words were just HN. I can't read it. What do you mean? It's fairly easy. Izuku told her and picked up the book. Hero team can enter. Izuku and her got inside as he placed 2 fingers on the ground. Yaoyorozu is on the top floor. My little fox is very close. He said to his teammate who nodded. Go up now, I'll deal with my girlfriend. He said while running towards her, Naruto style. Izuku reached the floor and smirked before putting his hands together, and then out them out. Ranten. Ryza Sakasu. Purple lighting came from his hands, making the whole room be blasted by the purple lighting. Kayun jumped from her spot to get away from it. Already storm release, Kayun said with a smirk. Are we getting serious? Kayun, we both want to go all out, he said with an equal-sized smirk. Yeah, you're right. She then put her hands together, and then shoot out a fireball from her mouth. Katan. Gakakyu no Jutsu. It rushed towards Izuku as he put his arm out. Miiten. Jujimento. He azabed the fireball and fires it back out with his other hand. Kayun smiled before simply azabing at the fireball. Mokutan. Hote no Jutsu. Several giant hands came from under Izuku as he jumped away with a bigger smirk across his face. Kayun, ninjutsu doesn't work on us. Let's take this to taijutsu. He threw a 3-pronged kunai at her, as her eyes widened. In a yellow flash, he was behind here. She turned around quickly and blocked a kick from him. She pushed herself back and smiled. Izuku, let's go with Kenjutsu instead. She forged a sword out of her truth seeker orbs. Izuku's eyes turned to his Sharingan. He focused chakra into his hand. A Menamina Kanishi. A black-like substance formed in his hand and made the shape of a staff. He swung it around himself before getting into position. The right leg out, with the left leg bent. The staff in line with his chest, while also being held from his right arm down to his left arm. Let's dance, little fox. They both disappeared, in pure speed, with everyone watching only able to see sparks or the damage they caused to the building. The only things of the Otsutsukis was blurs, a blonde versus a blue blur. They came to a standstill, with Izuku pressing down on his staff to make the pressure increase on Kayun's sword, which was slowly bringing it down. Cracks on the floor started to appear and soon the floor beneath her finally split apart, as dust came from it. Kayun was slightly annoyed at this and so activated her Byakugan and started a Kenjutsu style only her and Izuku knew. It was similar to the 8 trigrams. 64 palms, but instead the Tenketsu are not closed by fists but a sword, which is even more painful. This can also completely destroy a chakra network, or a part of it. This trick would have worked on anyone else, but she wasn't fighting someone normal, she was fighting the new Sage of 6 Paths. He deflected every swing or stab, dodged without a problem and got hits on Kayun, without trying. More for the fact that Izuku had his Byaku Sharingan activated. The Byaku Sharingan is the fusion between the dojutsus. Learning from Indra, he limited the power of both dojutsus when having open at the same time, so mastered fusing them together. The Byaku Sharingan had the milky white eyes of the Byakugan, but also had the Magatoma of the Sharingan, this time a light blue instead of the red. He could see chakra networks, nearly 300 degrees, see ranges up to 7,000 meters, and see moves before they happened, while also being able to copy jutsu. Izuku, having enough of Kayun's attempts to hit him, jumped in the air, threw his staff to the ground and landed on it. Kayun thought she knew this trick of lighting, but instead it was different. A minefield of mini-tailed beats bombs were spread across their location, shocking the blue-haired girl. Izuku out his left hand into a one-handed ram seal. True art is. You better not. Kaiyun screamed while Izuku had an evil smirk on his face. An explosion! Suddenly the whole room was filled with explosions, destroying the first 3 floors. In the observation room. Is he insane? Everyone shouted while All Might just chuckled. It isn't the first time I have seen that. When was the first time? Denkai asked. Well, flashback. 1 year ago. Location: Japan, Mustafa, Art Gallery. Nothing here looks like true art, Izuku said with Kaiyun having a puzzled expression. I find them quite nice, she told him and pointed towards a painting. True art is an explosion, Izuku proudly said, and he received a glare from Kaiyun. Don't, she warned, and he smiled. He put his hand into the one-handed ram seal and the whole building blew up. Flashback in Nissan, Izumi said with sad eyes. Why do you care for her more than me? She held back tears. Back with Izuku. Izuku, I will make you eat bugs. The blue-haired girl screamed in anger while Izuku gulped. Been there, done that. He remembered the time he was in Mount Mayaboku. Should I want to know or not? She asked, and the blonde shook his head while a depressed aura appeared around him. I don't want to eat anything from there in a long time. I'm Izuku. The Otsutsuki lady spoke. We're supposed to be fighting. Oh right. He then put on his sun-powered smile, which burned nearly everyone's eyes of those who were not used to it. Izuku, stop, why your smile is one of my weakness, Kaiyun said while trying not to look as a mad blush took over her face. Why? I am just smiling, he said while rubbing the back of his head. So you want me to become serious? No, I want to live, Kaiyun shouted, and Izuku was even more confused. Why would you die for me becoming serious? It's not like I can destroy the world, he stated, and Kaiyun gave a blank expression. That's the exact reason, Nico. Oh. They stood there in awkward silence before Izuku gained a big smirk. Sorry, Kaiyun, but I am ending this in one attack. It will take more than one attack to beat me, she shouted and charged towards him. Multi-shadow clone jutsu. Many clones appeared around Izuku before he put his hands together. Everyone stared, wanting to see what of his moves he would use. He isn't going to use that? Indra shouted in his mind while Ashura smiled. He truly is my little brother. Hagoromo was stunned. It's the same jutsu. Hamura nodded. Yes, the same jutsu that worked on her. Everyone was now watching. Nizu was looking through his cameras wanting to see the next move. Indra was eating a tomato. Ashura was eating ramen. The ramen guy was weirdly there. Kaiyun was about to get him, but then a puff of smoke appeared and everyone then heard. Reverse harem no jutsu. Many naked Izukus were around Kaiyun as she did the only thing she could. Faint with a nosebleed. Every girl had the same reaction as Kaiyun. All Might was laughing his ass off. Indra was embarrassed. Hagoromo had sweat rolled down his face. Hamura chuckled. Ashura was very proud. Nizu was evilly smirking of using that move for blackmailing purposes. The boys were wondering why it was called reverse. All the clones disappeared and Izuku chuckled. She never would suspect I would use that move. He grabbed Kaiyun and teleported to the bomb, seeing a fainted pair of girls with nosebleeds. Is it really this powerful? I still remember when Naruto used that on Kaguya. Kurama spoke with a smile. It is very disgraceful, Saiken told the fox. As said fox rolled his eyes and went back to sleep. Izuku returned to the observation room with the knocked girls and saw the rest were similar. He decided to put them down and wake every up with another deadly jutsu that this time would scare everyone. If you don't wake up, then I will put Boku no Piku on. Every girl shot right back up. Let's just the scolding he got from Kaiyun was very bad. After the matches they went home, and of course, Izuku was planning something and no one knew. What was he planning? Let's just say, a revival. Izuku was meditating while feeling the space around him. Like water with no wind, it did not move. The same for his chakra then. As large as an ocean. He was meditating and thinking about his plan to resurrect his cousin, Hana. The thing is, he could with his Rinne rebirth technique from his Rinnegan, but there was no body to begin with. He was slightly frustrated but also knew that the Rinne rebirth must have a second ability to get over this. Hagoromo, seeing his frustration, decided to help him. You can rebuild her body using Rinne rebirth. As long as you know what your cousin looks like, it should work. Thanks to San. Izuku thanked him with a smile and stopped his meditation. He activated his Rinnegan and focused his chakra into it. He placed his hand the ground, spawning the King of Hell, and pure green chakra appeared around its mouth. This chakra was being morphed into a body, blood, organs, bone, and flesh. After a little bit, the king of hell opened its mouth, making Hana's lifeless body slide out. Hana is a young girl with dark, medium-length hair that she wore up in pigtails on the sides of her head, short bangs that hung halfway down her forehead, and 2 shoulder-length, thick strands of hair left out to frame her face. She had dark, cat-like eyes that slanted inwards and towards the middle of her face. She wore a plain, light-colored t-shirt with stripes around the sleeve, cuffs, and collar. Izuku then breathed in and out, before putting his hands together. Gedo. Rinna Tensei no Jutsu. A green glow formed around the black-haired girl, causing her to have life once more. Izuku couldn't suffer the effects of the technique because of the fact that his blood is complicated. Izuku has Otsutsuki blood running in him, actually being 3/4 Otsutsuki. Unlike a half-breed then, he gains the uniqueness of a Otsutsuki body. The effects of techniques that are only harsh on humans, full-blooded humans or half-breeds, do not affect him. He bent over, looking at the girl's eyes slowly open. Her vision was blurry and seeing her brother killing her again in her mind. The pain in her heart and body. Hana. She heard her name be called out. You probably won't recognize me, but it's me, Izuku. She saw the blonde man smile with his eyes closed. Izumi? She asked. Why do you look different? Her vision was getting better, and she could see him properly. He gently patted her head with a sad smile. It's been years since you were killed, Ha-chan. I don't know where Tenko is either, but I promise I will find him. Hana looked down and away, with tears rolling down her face. He sighed and pulled her into a hug. Now how about I tell you what has happened during your absence? He said with a smile and proceeded to tell her everything. Time skip few hours. Nico! Kaiyun bursted into the room with a big smile on her face. Kaiyun, Izuku said with a smirk. You're more like my dad than I am. He gave a chuckle at the end and Kaiyun became flustered, until she saw Hana. Izuku, do you have child? Kaiyun said with sad eyes and the blonde shook his head. His smile grew as he then gave a flirty one. We can make one if you want? He then saw his girlfriend on the ground, unconscious. Is she your girlfriend, Izumi? The black-haired girl asked, a bit scared, while Izuku's arms were locked around her. Yep, and she is my little fox. Anyway, so I have these 9-tailed beasts in me. And he continued to tell her everything. Time skip. No, it's HN. Izuku said to his cousin who was confused. But I said HN? Izuku looked shocked, and she was confused. Who taught you that word? He asked, and she was beyond confused. I am saying HN. Why can't you understand? She said in frustration while Izuku and Indra had an important conversation. She used that HN, Indra said with a shocked expression. How old is she again? Izuku asked his brother who just said 3 to 5. How does she know those words though? He then stopped talking, to see his cousin pouting at him. Sorry Hana, but you can't use that kind language. Izumi, I don't get it. She said sadly. How can I understand HNs if I don't know how to say them right? She looked at her cousin who had a bright smile on his face. Hana, you just said that whole sentence in that one HN. He said before anime crying. I'm so proud of you. He hugged her, while Kaiyun was smiling. Hana, it's simple, just say HN again. Kaiyun told her and Izuku nodded. You understand it, Kane? Kaiyun nodded with a smile. You understand after living with the guy and being his girlfriend. Do you know that Ekeha's first language they learn is the way of the HN? Izuku nodded while Hana then said. HN. Kaiyun's sweat dropped while Izuku had a dark aura. HN. What does Izumi mean? Hana asked Kaiyun who smiled. You said Sadara was useful. Hana looked confused, but then saw Izuku's expression change. Don't worry Hana, I know you don't understand, so you're off the hook. He then got up and walked out. We need to get changed, little fox, or else we will be late for school. See ya, Hana-chan. Kaiyun said with a smile and ran out to change. Location, space. Hanshiki-sama. Your daughter's lover is getting even more powerful. Otsutsuki said to him, and the blue-haired male proceeded to sigh. He shall give me a fight I was wished for ever since I laid eyes on Kaguya and Ishiki's new power. He told them with a stern look. Ishiki was my older brother, as you know. Kaguya had killed him, or I had believed, but I never had a good relationship with him. But Kaguya betrayed me more than anyone. He told them, and they looked afraid as his eyes glowed an even darker red. Henshiki-sama, your devil eye is showing again. Some screamed, and he stopped putting chakra into his eyes. Sorry, but I get angry easily. First these humans take my fiancé, and now my daughter. I never loved Kayun, but this human seems to give her power that I can't even grasp. Is this what love is? He trailed off and got up, with him walking out of the room. Henshiki-sama is going to kill that human? No, he plans on persuading him onto the side of it's ours. Can we trust it will work? Henshiki-sama believes it won't unless we capture Kayun-sama. With Henshiki. Kayun. He said his daughter's name with a sad expression. When you were born, I truly felt love again. But I didn't want to lose you like I lost Kaguya and my brother. A tear fell from his face. Why am I cursed with such horrible misfortune? Location: Earth, Japan, Mustafa, UA, Class 1A. Everyone was talking to each other, while waiting for the two Otsutsuki. Aizawa was growing impatient, but then Lightning Bolt had a fun thing to say. I think they are having a fun alone time, he said with a smirk, and three girls were jealous until the door flew off its hinges. I win! Kayun shouted with a wide smirk, while Izuku was sitting on Aizawa's desk. You were saying, little fox? He gave a smile and she looked behind shocked. But I just left you in the bedroom? She then looked everywhere but couldn't find anything. Wait, you didn't. She gave a cute glare and pout. Izuku's sweat dropped slowly down his face. Do what? He said while slowly getting to his seat. You used that teleportation thingy. She was angry at him, and so he had to endure a punishment that many were confused upon. He lost a certain orange book off him. Aizawa saw the two finally sit down. Izuku wasn't sad because he said, I don't need to read it if I can experience it. And now he could start. Listen everyone, I watched your matches from yesterday and I have to say, most of you are absolutely shit. Izumi, you went on about trying to impress someone. Katsuki, you thought you could fight the bomb. Shoto, teamwork is very important. Katsumi, stopped bitching and fight, and Sakura, don't get knocked out by a falling brick. He then looked at the two lovers. And you two, you both wanted to fight each other, then do what you had to do, and Izuku, don't ever use that move again. He glared at him and Izuku gave one back. Try to stop me. I am going to be the #1 hero with the ability to make girls pass out in a second. Believe it, Aizawa was shocked but knew he couldn't change his mind, so didn't bother. Alright, now we have a very, very important task to do, and if you do not do this right, then so help me Nizu, I will break your souls. Everyone, expect to, nodded quickly. And so began chaos. Now pick a class president. And he jumped into the air, pressed a button on his new watch, and was then transformed into his caterpillar form. Pick me. Most people, and the pick me you extras was said by a very big scumbag. Izuku grew annoyed, and so a part of Indra took control. Shut up, he said with a sweet smile with emotionless eyes, scaring everyone and making them listen. Good, now me and Little Fox can't be picked for this because of reasons doing with the evil mouse. I suggest you do a vote to see who gets it. Oh, and you better do it because I love democracy. Everyone nodded quickly and did just that. Ida won with 3 votes and Momo with 2. They became the class president and vice president of the class. Ida looked at Izuku. I agree with you, I love democracy. Izuku nodded and they did a handshake about it. Lunchtime. So everyone was eating and chatting in the cafeteria, except for the 2 Otsutsuki. Where were they? Well, let's not get into it. Isaac-kun, I can't take th that much and more. The blue-haired Otsutsuki said with shocked eyes. You sure you can't? The blonde Otsutsuki asked with a smirk. It's only a super large bowl of ramen. But if I do then? She looked away and then Izuku laughed. Please Kayun, you don't have to worry about that. He stopped and saw her pleading eyes. Fine, but I get all this ramen then. He had a big smile, while thinking he heard jealous Naruto noises. Do you hear alarm going off? Kayun said and Izuku just sighed. Maybe some douche kanush set one off? Izuku suggested and they nodded. Kayun looked at him and grew a blush. Izuku, what do you think our kids would look like? I have thought about it, and Kayun, they look adorable. Why ask? Kayun gulped and looked at him. I want to have a kid. Izuku was stunned and didn't respond, which scared Kayun. Kids? He thought. With Kayun. He smiled at the idea. He looked at his scared girlfriend and pulled her into a hug. I wouldn't mind a bit. She grew a big smile, and it went into a different kind of fighting. Yue, Principal Nizu office. Let's see about the cameras. He looked at them all before seeing Kayun and Izuku. Now I have blackmailing material on you both, be afraid. He grew an evil smile before turning the cameras off. Time skip USJ. The class, expect for two love makers, were at the site. Tashinori, Aizawa and 13 would be there monitoring the students. Once they all got in, a portal opened. Out came a crusty, dusty, hand freak with his boys. Looks like All Might is here. This shall be fun. Again, a blue-haired, pale man shouted at his daughter. She looked to be in pain with tears going down her face. Tears are for the weaklings. You are my daughter. You shall not show such things. He attacked her again. She was going through hellish training by her father. Father, please. She was silenced by a fist. If you have enough energy to talk, then fight me. He punched her to the ground, with the poor girl barely breathing. The male scowled before walking away. Learn from your mistakes today. I expect better from you tomorrow, Kayun. He said with not even bothering to look back at her. The poor little girl only watched her father leave with tears falling down her face. Why do you hate me? She shouted to her father, who stopped in his tracks. He looked back with a sad look. I don't, but you need to learn that love is a weakness, he said with a sigh, thinking today he went too far with her. It was only her first day training anyway. Kayun got up with the little strength she had. You only lie to yourself? You do hate me. She ran out, while the older Otsutsuki just looked on with a tear rolling down his face. If only you knew the truth, Kayun, if only. He went to where she ran, seeing her cry by the river nearby. It reminded him of himself when his brother would always be a selfish cunt. Kayun suddenly felt a pair of strong arms wrapped around her. She looked up to see her father with tears coming from his eyes. I want you to remember, Kayun. I don't hate you. I love you, so please hate me as much as you want, but I will always love you, he said to her as she fell asleep. Papa, do you still love me? A older Kayun thought to herself before waking up and seeing Izuku with concern written all over his face. Oh, thank Kami, you alright? He said as he hugged her. You look sacred and hurt. Are you alright? His voice was full of worry, and she chuckled slightly. She always found it weird how easily scared he can get for another. She gave him a peck. Just my dad. He is confusing, you know. I have rarely seen any emotion from him, but I know he is a softie underneath his hard exterior. It's only because of his eyes he is a bad version of himself. She finished with a sad smile. She remembered a time where he was on the floor in pain because of his eyes. She never knew a world could shake because of a scream. His eyes? Izuku commented whole. She gave a grim look. She never liked talking about them, but she felt he could know. Dad has own unique dojutsu but can't control it, the devil eyes we call it. It basically has one drawback, and that's the person becomes the opposite of themselves sometimes. Resisting the drawbacks leads to unbelievable pain and suffering for him. The blue-haired girl looked up with a sad expression. Izuku was trying to find a way to brighten the mood. Izuku chuckled to himself. Do you think he is coming here then to see if you're alright then? He was actually hoping not to find out that her father was very overprotective of her when his good side was out. Possibly, and I would like to think of it like that. Maybe he wants to meet you, but probably for a fight. The blonde-haired boy nodded before getting up and stretching. I am going to take off these seals on me, let my true appearance out, you know. Kayun slightly blushed thinking about his true form and gulped. The one thing she need is to be knocked out by him again. Izuku, that would dangerous for me, she said with a nervous chuckle. She really did want to see it though. Nah, you'll be fine. He started to glow with several different colors coming off. The air became more dense, the skies darkened and split apart the clouds. When Izuku stopped glowing, a new figure stood in front of Kayun. His hair was not as long but did reach the back of his neck. His muscles were more obvious, and he grew in size as well. His face became more mature, and his eyes were more a blue with a reflecting green shine. Better. Izuku's voice was more deep than before and had a tone that sent shivers down Kayun's spine. So anyway, we should head to USJ. Kayun slowly nodded, while Izuku was confused, before looking at his shirt hugging his body with slight rips in the material. His pants also were the same, with him sighing. Hey evil rat, he called out. I know you have been watching the whole time and don't think you have blackmailing material on us. I already have hacked your software and have full control of the school. Anyway, get me a new uniform because I am going to need it. He heard a chuckle through the camera's mic. The chuckle Nizu uses when he is going to be an evil little devil. I have taught you well, young apprentice. And yes, I can do that, but I have something special to do after this for the both of us. He could hear the wickedness of what it was. You could feel the menacing from Jojo around the camera. We will talk about it later then. He walked ahead and his girlfriend followed behind with a smile. He could only roll his eyes, knowing what she was going to do. Ross, you there, Nico? She disappeared in a blue of blue light. He generally wondered how they were both so energetic after doing something, aka the deed. He chuckled before disappearing as well. His thoughts were on Kaiyun though. The amount he was told about her dad, he was honestly worried if he was far stronger than him. Once Izuku reached the USJ, he saw 3 bird-like creatures fighting the heroes. Izuku, I will help out classmates. After all, I am better at healing ninjutsu. Kaiyun told him and disappeared again, leaving a smirking Izuku. Let's see. His eyes slowly changed into a pair of 3 Tomo Sharigans. How long you can last? He disappeared in a cloud of dust, appearing in front of one of the bird monsters, this one having more blue skin than the others. It tried to punch him, but its fist was grabbed by Izuku and ripped off, making it scream in pain. Its arms started to regenerate, but it soon went flying off. Hyper-regeneration. Interesting. Izuku spoke before materializing a black staff, made from a truth-seeker orb. Sadly, I have methods around that. Tashinori punched another creature. Hand Fetish was enjoying the scene. The students watched in fear. However, a head of the blue-skinned bird monster fell at walking masturbation's feet. What? He could only say before another of his monsters was taken out by a flying blue orb. Nanny! Sorry for being late, old man, Izuku said with little to no care. But I had to do something. The walking, talking hand scratched his neck furiously. You cheated. There is no way you killed one of my nomas. He screamed at the blonde, but said blonde rolled his eyes. He wanted to put those so far up his, you can guess what. No, no, no. He put his finger up as he said that. No cheats, just pure skill. His hands started to be glowing in blue chakra. And also, HN. What the fuck does that Maya? He looked over to where he saw All Might. And all my nomas are dead. He looked at the super drug addict Villian, who is literally a walking, talking cloud of weed. Get us out of here. The mist did as told, and they disappeared inside of him. Huh. Indra spoke in his head. That's kinda gay. He could hear his brother gasping. Ni-san! He heard his first younger brother at him, while he just shrugged. Straight facts. He walked away, while Izuku looked at the dead nomas. Expected more, especially the fact that the writer didn't even write your entrance or anything. TCH, side characters. He spoke while breaking a certain fourth wall that tried to hide, but he was like Itachi to the Uchiha. With Kaiyun. Who is that guy? Pika, I mean Dekai shouted. The boys were slightly jealous at his body. Expect Aoyama, who smiled, and the girls kinda blushed, madly. Oh, that's Niko's true form, or if you don't know the nickname, Izuku. She could see the shocked faces and could feel 3 girls having mini orgasms about her man. Yes, she not fan. I also want to say something else about Nico. He is possibly the most dangerous man on this planet. Actually, I think he could kill everyone on this planet if he wanted to. There is no way that damn Deku is that strong. Someone you don't want on a plane unless you want go explode, Mr. Bakugo himself, shouted with lots of anger. It might be his kink to shout. Well, he could blackmail, slowly kill you, destroy any chance of having a good life, destroying your hopes and dreams, kill your loved ones, put you under a genjusta for years, and the list goes on. Kaiyun said with a bright smile because she is safe. Her boyfriend would never do any of things to her. Oh, and they apply to more than one person here. And with that she walked over. When she got there, she could see a terrified All Might and a evilly laughing Izuku. You can't use that kind of power. Every male will be destroyed. But they will suffer. He looked, then did 1,000 hand signs in a second. Izuku, it's too powerful. Kaiyun shouted, but Izuku then used a seal that made it reach the whole of UA. Now UA shall finally know. The sound of every sad soundtrack from Naruto and Naruto Shippuden played. Pain. In UA. Truly my student. Nizu whipped a tear from his face and could hear the cries all over the school. The day after Izuku made UA know pain for real, he and Kaiyun were sitting in their home, with them in each other's arms watching a movie. Aizu, do you like the idea of a little girl? Kaiyun asked the blonde, who smiled, kissing her forehead. I don't mind, Kaiyun. He simply responded to his girlfriend. The wind outside was soft, as Izuku looked on with a smile outside. Kaiyun, how about we have a match? We never have fought each other at our full strength. Oh, and don't use my 6 paths power as an excuse for not to go full out. I know you have yet to show your true power against me. Kaiyun just looked away before sighing herself. Well, it's hard to get the spotlight when your boyfriend is basically God. She pouted to him, and he just sighed before smirking. He then wrapped his arms around her waist. Kaiyun, little fox. I'm sorry for taking your spotlight. As a way of saying sorry, I will give you your favorite meal for a whole week. He gave her the option, receiving a pout glare from his girlfriend before she nodded. Izuku then activated his EMS, and using Kamui, disappeared into the dimension of Kamui. Location: Kamui Pocket Dimension. A giant orb of dark red chakra flew out of Kaiyun's hand at Izuku, who absorbed it using his Rinnegan. A smile appeared on Kaiyun's face, a crazed, obsessed smile. She launched at him, connecting a punch to his stomach and sending him through 2 blocks. I wonder if you can deflect this one. Kaiyun giggled as she raised her arm into the air, chakra forming into a large sphere of chaos inside. Now this move is one of my father's favorite, Atsuki Fukushu. Sure no Warai Atsutsuki Revenge. Death's laugh. She threw it towards Izuku, who just got out of the rubble. He gained a smile of his own before being engulfed in a dark blue dance of chakra. 2 can play at that game, little fox. A massive explosion of light eclipsed Kaiyun's attack as the figure of Izuku's perfect Susanoo formed. Once formed, light brightened and lightened as both palms on Izuku's Susanoo gained markings of the sun and moon. The eyes also changed from being a glowing red to a bright turquoise. Kaiyun looked up and down, before her body was engulfed by a purple chakra. Don't think you're not the only one with a trick like that, she said quietly before a violent explosion of purple came from her. Standing in her place could only be described as a Oni samurai. Before a second could go past, the violent beginning sound of the battle began. Swords clashed, axes raised, spears locked in place. As a clash between the titans happened, the landscape of the pocket dimension vanished, only remains of ruins to show that it existed. A few hours went by, with Izuku just being able to beat his girlfriend in base form. They were exhausted but both enjoyed every second of it. I think that's enough for today, Izuku said, with a nod from Kaiyun. Just having the energy to get them out, Toshinori saw his son and his girlfriend come out of a vortex, sweaty, exhausted and happy. You can only guess what went through his mind. What the actual fuck? Toshinori shouted, transforming into all might. And am I expecting grandchildren soon then? He asked, curious, but then got a glare from them both, deflating and shutting up. A few hours later. Location: Japan, Mustafa, Yagi Resistance. Kaiyun was washing her hair before she heard a sound of her boyfriend blowing something up. She looked into their room and saw him looking at a hole in the wall. Aizu, you didn't, she said threateningly. He looked back and smiled. No, stop. True art. No, is made. He showed a painting of them together. Of course you don't see it, readers, but I know, and let's just say, Izuku got his butt handed to him. He tried. Time skip. Kaiyun, Izuya said to his girlfriend who punched the wall. I know, no, but this is a tradition on Earth. Why? She shouted at him, who shrugged. One does not simply question no, not November, one follows, he said before looking at her. Oh, and the fact that I have an angry brunette in my head right now. Inside his head. This month is torture. Ashura screamed while Indra took a sip of his tea, looked at him, shrugged. Ned did attack as well, took another sip, looked back at his phone and saw it was November, looked back up at Ashura, took another sip of his tea, put it down on the table, got up, walked to Ashura and slapped him in the face, walked back to his seat, sat down and took a sip and realized his toast was missing. Ashura, where is my toast? He said darkly, while the brunette got crumbs off his face. Crazy story, but a witch, who was kinda a bitch, came along and stole your toast on a stool, he said, looking back at Indra, gulping at his brother. Violent red eyes, slowly backed away, then full out ran away, grabbed a stool and toast and flew away. Indra looked shocked before Hagoromo came in and looked at Indra suspiciously. Indra, have you seen where my tea is? Indra out the cup down and finished his tea. Funny story, the guy who writes this story is British, came in and drank all the tea, left singing the English national anthem, stabbed Ashura and disappeared. Hagoromo raised the eyebrow. Indra gulped, got up, picked up a tea and drank it, left singing and stabbed Ashura before disappearing. Outside his mind. Should I want to know? Kaiyun asked, getting an immediate answer of no before Izuku looked at her and music started to play. Kaiyun, here is some advice for life to remember. It is better to shit in the shower than shower in the shit. Izuku, what happened? She asked, concerned before the music grew louder. Naruto and Sasuke might have beaten Otsutsuki, but I am on a different level. I fucked them. He looked at his girlfriend, who blushed massively before Izuku decided to send a message with chakra somewhere. Location: space, Otsutsuki Henshiki ship. Who in space, Jesus, are you? Henshiki asked Izuku, who smiled at him. I'm the guy that fucked your daughter. Believe it, he shouted at him, looking at the face of the man who looked at him shocked. You mean to say that you fucked my daughter and come to me to say this? They both were in silence. A staring contest between the two Otsutsuki. Henshiki got up, before Izuku could even move or register what happened, was behind him. I admit you are brave. Brave enough to step forward in front of me. To even say what you and my daughter have done. A sense of absolute fear swept in Izuku. But I am the devil of the gods for a reason. I made my brother, Ishiki, tremble. I made Kaguya fear me that she betrayed me. I am the being that caused the first star to be destroyed. He didn't look at Izuku, but all he could feel is terror. Do you know of how many lives I have taken? He asked again, moving towards the window. I have killed many innocent, cruel, deserving, and most of all. His hand went through Izuku's chest, exploding him into chakra. You are yet to be. Izuku opened his eyes. Fear paralyzing him still. He was something far worse. A being of terror that plagued the very heart of a person. His breathing was out of control and his heart being a racing car. Izuku! Kaiyuji called out, worried for him. What happened? Izuku didn't respond, a feeling of determination spreading over him. He was far from close to his level, but with training could be, hopefully. Kaiyun, he finally said. Your father is terrifying. I know. I woke up to that and lived with it for a very long time. You can never get used to it. She hugged him as he calmed down. Rest, this is too much for you to handle. He nodded. Kaiyun helping him to their room and him resting. Location: Izuku's mindscape. Izuku, however, only saw visions of a woman. She always crying and looking at him, reaching to his face and embracing him. A feeling of comfort washing down on him. He is strong, but you can be stronger. She only said that before leaving a very confused Izuku. Who was that? He thought he had seen her before, but his mind went blank. He was, however, stopped when he heard this. What the fuck were you thinking? Indra shouted at him. Going to fight someone you know nothing about and saying you had sex with their daughter. How else did you think this would turn out? Think, Izuku, think. Izuku lay there listening to it all. He could hear the laughter of Kurama outside the house. He got up, seeing his older brother just look at him, and sighed. Are you really that angry or proud? Both. Indra told him. You asserted your dominance like a true Uchiha, but still very reckless. Izuku sighed before his form started to change into a more peaceful form. Forgot you had that technique from Tashinori. You mean where I can change the weight and look of my body? Family trait, I guess. He didn't look as strong, but now having a more innocent look. I should ask Dad about tips on fighting Otsutsuki. He thought to himself before getting up and walking around. Izuku hadn't felt so weak in such a long time that it felt too foreign. He was so used to being the strongest that he had lost the feeling of defeat. A feeling of his old life starting to seep in. A tear coming from his eye. Right now he felt as weak as he did back then. Was that genjutsu Indra showed coming true? Would he fail? He felt a hand on his shoulder, looking up and seeing Hamura looking down with a smile. Weakness is a lesson for improvement, Izuku. Just because you have failed here, does not mean you have failed altogether. One failure does not make many, only if you let it, shall it. Izuku still had a gloomy look in his eyes. He wasn't feeling better yet, but a little part of him was agreeing. Izuku then decided that just maybe one thing is necessary. He needed to find a chakra fruit. Kaiyun and Hagoromo have told him about them. The pure fact that they grant such power would be needed quickly. A thought then came to mind. What about he found an alternative route to one of these fruits, already having all-tailed beasts? They have existed for a while, an amount of time that would have made said fruit. Izuku technically has all the world's chakra and all chakra Kaguya gave to her sons. In theory, this would allow him to achieve his goal. All he needed now is to find a way to get it into existence. He could create a tree in the middle of his mindscape that would allow the production of the fruit, and therefore allowing him to gain this power. He put his hands together and thought carefully. Adjust so that would allow this? He doesn't have it in his arsenal, as even the Mokutan has its limits with this kind of thing. Senpo. Saimai no Shinsina Sozo, Sage Art. Divine creation of life. He said to himself. Roots started to form in the middle of the mindscape. A giant tree grew from the ground, cracks and tears in the ground forming as it grew. All inside his mind watched in awe, as Kaiyun outside felt the power radiate off him. Even someone like Henshiki, far from Earth, felt it. His mind blown as others. Did a child find a way to create divine trees? This one was more potent than any other he has felt before. Activating his Byakugan and seeing a sight that imprinted itself on his memory forever. Earth was surrounded by chakra, glowing like the sun in divinity. He dropped to his knees. Such power and strength. This was far beyond all Otsutsuki, even the ones who were gods like himself. Izuku opened his eyes to see what had happened. He did it. A tree was created by imputing parts of his chakra and the earth's. Seeing the tree having a fruit, he teleported towards it. Hagoromo looked on in shock. His son had done something that he would have considered impossible. This is necessary, he thought with a smile. To defend Earth and her people, he must obtain the same power as the Otsutsuki but far ahead of them. Izuku now had a fruit far beyond anything ever seen in the whole universe. All he had to do is eat it. And as he did, the power from it alone shoot up his whole body. Almost as if he was being ripped out of time, space, and reality all together. His body breaking apart as his mind was in complete chaos. He needed to control this, but how? Location: Japan, Mustafa, Kirishima's house. Many of the class were over just because it was something to do. That was all fun, until the whole world shocked in an uncontrolled earthquake. Going past any limits they had, the world experienced a new type of earthquake. This one having the power of destroying buildings in a simple small rumble. It soon stopped before it got better. All the damage seemed to reverse itself. Izuku's body changed completely. His fair skin now being more fair than any other. His eyes more pure of blue than the sky and oceans. His hair being now a glowing blonde. His chakra having no bounds, as if it was space itself. He got up from his sleep. Kaiyun looking shocked beyond belief. Did he just awaken the power of the first Otsutsuki? Kaiyun, you look shocked. His smile now was more than just light, it was brighter than the sun. Is something wrong? She didn't respond as he got up. You know what I did? I had really no choice, as the protector and guardian of Earth and its people. I must be at my strongest. She giggled, he gave a confused look until she hugged him. You big Dume. I just thought how powerful you become. You are what we call the deity. She told him. She had told him lots of the Otsutsuki clan stories, but never this. Legend goes that the first Otsutsuki had power that dwarfed everything. His power alone could change the very fabric of time. He is, after all, the first king of the Otsutsuki as well. Oh, and I am basically Hamura and Hagoromo, meaning I am his descendant then. She nodded but then smacked his face. Warn me when you're going to do something like that. You really scared the crap out of me and most of the world. She puffed her cheeks and Izuku just chuckled nervously. Anyway, we have training to continue on and a festival to win. The day like no other. The streets of Japan full, as many came to this event. A event so grand, in the eyes of the people. To see what the future had in stock for their heroes. The day bright and happy, as the wind danced and trees waved. The day was only getting started. Izuku! Kirishima shouted at his rival and spoke. You look so manly today. But I will show you my training and where I have improved. He raised his fist in the air, while Izuku turned to him. You said something, Kirishima? He asked his friend, who looked startled and shocked. Damn you, Izuku! Kirishima shouted while others just shocked their heads. Aoyama was talking about his dazzling looks and his tummy slightly aching. Mina was talking to Kaiyun and Momo about potential boyfriends and how cool Izuku was to Kaiyun. Tsuyu was speaking to Uraraka about their quirks. Ida was trying to get everyone in order. Ojiro was talking to Izuku about martial arts and how he could improve. Denki was trying to calm down Kirishima with Zero. Koda was just nervous. Sato was eating some food. Shogi kept to himself like Tokoemi. Jiro was dragged into the conversation with Mina and that. Izumi and Ko were brooding about Izuku. Toru came in a bit late, then was dragged into Mina's betting of ships. I'm telling you, Ojiro, you have a very unique quirk that allows for better martial arts than most people. Your tail allows for you to have better balance and also better moves to conduct. Izuku told him with a smile. The tailed male smiled, pleased with the answer. You just need confidence because a certain invisible girl might feel the same. He whistled along, leaving a blushing Ojiro. Izuku then felt something on his shoulder and saw Shoto. Listen carefully, Izuku. I don't care how powerful you are. I will beat you and prove that I am the best here. Izuku just gave an amused look, but also bored. Cool. He then got out a book and started to read, making the Todoroki mad. I declare. He was stopped by Izuku walking away. He just kept reading and walking. Hey, I'm not done talking. Really? Izuku asked sarcastically. Sorry, but all I hear is a sorry excuse of a human trying to talk to me. He simply said. Those who abandon their friends are worse than scum. Remember those words. The class was then called out, Izuku and Kaiyun obviously coming up with a plan together. Walking out, they could hear the cheers of many spectators. Izuku sighed. Troublesome. Once they got out, they were blown away by the amount of cheers they got. Izuku and Kaiyun though seemed to be thinking of something else. Like they knew something was coming. Give it up for Class 1A! Mike screamed out to the crowd. Cheers erupting once more. They saw Midnight on stage and began to speak. Can Izuku Yagi of Class 1A please come up here? He mentally sighed, but knew he had to do this. He walked up, feeling eyes on him. Many were saying that he was that godlike figure talked about in Mustafa. He seemed to like a glowing icon for them. He stood next to the unique hero and was given the mic. He knew that this meant a speech. He sighed and spoke. So I am guessing my fellow peers think I am an arrogant bastard because I am part of Class 1A. To be fair, there are some like that. He looked at Katsuki. And I do have thoughts like that. But I do not think I am better than you. You all are different. All have different powers and all have different reasons to fight. So don't try to focus your anger on a couple of people and lose sight of the truth. In the end, you might just turn out corrupt, like most heroes. He said while looking at the stands. He didn't like any heroes that much. They used the true meaning and twisted it for power. He walked off and just got back to his class. People were confused, but they knew he was trying to get the other classes to actually fight everyone instead of one class. So they cheered him on. Well, we have our first game for today, the heroine shouted. We will be having an obstacle race. Izuku and Kaiyun just looked at each other. No one would see their speeds, but they made a deal to one another. Whoever lost got the right to Rebenda's litter tray cleaning. The beeping was heard as all classes were ready. Izuku and Kaiyun didn't, however. 3, 2. They both then released their chakra, Izuku's being far too strong to sense or feel for humans. 1, go! Shoto went to freeze the path but then heard. What in the blue balls? Mike shouted as everyone saw Izuku and Kaiyun at the finish line, both bickering on who won. I got here first. I'm pretty sure Mike and I got here before you. Your what? I mean foot. Run. He heard from everyone in his head and so he did, away from a very angry Otsutsuki. Later, it was decided they drawed, and so they both were trying to figure out who had to clean it. Let's just say Kaiyun has persuasion methods against him. Now for our second game. A shadow formed above the stadium, a ship from space arriving. Izuku and Kaiyun knew exactly who this was. This was now a true fight. People suddenly came out who looked like Kaiyun. Without a hesitation, Izuku appeared near them and destroyed 5 with a well-placed burst of his chakra. Kaiyun looked above and saw the eyes of death looking at her. The stadium was evacuated as reporters wanted to know what was going on. Kaiyun. She stood still as her father appeared in front of her, his eyes glowing red at her. It's good to see you again. Izuku was too busy with the waves of Otsutsuki. He activated KCM-1 and started to fight what seemed like an army. One of them rushed at him, brutish attacks, which were easily dodged and countered. He punched him in the stomach and then muttered, Shinra Tensei. He went flying away as Izuku made sure to give him a present. Without muttering or doing hand signs, he raised his left hand and threw him down, killing him. One tried to attack him as he believed he was distracted. He was punched in the face, then Izuku put a hand on his stomach before kicking him away. Putting one hand in the ramp seal, blowing him up with the others he flew into. Get that Batar! He was stopped as a blur went past the wave. Izuku appearing above them all and then a clone below. Both now shouting, Shinra Tensei! The forces joined together and crushing them all. He finished them until he felt Kaiyun's chakra. looking down and seeing her father near her. Kayun. To be honest, I have some love to you. But it is overshadowed by the disappointment you are to me. He spoke, before he put his hand through her stomach. So let me get rid of that problem. She fell to the floor, coughing up blood and chakra slowly fading. He looked up and an instant thought came to mind. Shit. He raised his hand, catching a punch from Izuku. The look on his face unreadable. What's wrong, human? Upset I killed your girlfriend? He seemed to chuckle. He didn't know why he was in the air in so much pain. He fell to the ground and saw Kayun be healed by Izuku. I guess more powerful than last time. Allow me to return the favor. His eyes suddenly glowed so bright that engulfed his whole body and blinded Izuku and Kayun. The light disappeared and stood before them with something else. His blue hair now glowed brighter than stars, his eyes null with a pink glow. His muscles more defined and his clothes more torn. Let's see how you do against the first level. He gave a sneer. Izuku couldn't do anything before being blown through several buildings. His neck then grabbed and thrown into the air, the back of his head then pushed down into the ground, ramming his head through it. You see, kid, I have existed for many years. I know power when I see it, and yours is just pitiful. You though creating a chakra fruit would save you, huh? He seemed to mock Izuku before kicking him in up and punching him back down. You may have gained it, but you the first human to do it. Us Otsutsuki have done it for years upon years. It's simple to gain our powers from it. You are just the first to do it. He got on his level, picking up his head. The problem is, you sacrificed power for power. Your body is not used to this change and still needs time to process it all. You can't use your crazy powers anymore. That is until your body does get used to it. He then raised his hand to the air. And so, for your stupidity, I shall destroy this whole city. Izuku looked shocked but couldn't do anything until Henshiki's grasp loosened as he stumbled back. Izuku saw before him, All Might with his iconic smile. Snow was falling down in Japan, the day being the 25th of December. The streets covered in snow and Christmas decorations. The day jolly and the sound of laughter and cheer throughout the world. Izuku was asleep in his bed, not knowing his dad coming through door. I'm going through the door like Santa Claus. The sound of his dad had made him jolt up awake, seeing his dad in his Christmas outfit. Morning. Today I am Santa Might, he said with a proud smile. Izuku rubbed his eyes and saw him. Dad, why do you look like a buff mall Santa? He asked innocently, who chuckled before posing. I am the hero of Christmas. The hero of joy and happiness. Izuku chuckled before seeing Rabenda come in and meow. Rabenda, what do you mean? Izuku asked. The cat walked off and he looked up at his dad. She said you look like a Santa on steroids. Toshinori's sweat dropped and he casually walked away. Izuku was left alone in his room. He smiled before walking to his closest and judging on what to wear. He looked thoroughly and decided to wear a Christmas attire. When he came downstairs, he was blinded by the light of his dad's camera. He also saw that his uncle Aizawa and Nizu had came over. Of course, Aizawa was playing with Rabenda and Nizu drinking his magic tea. He ran over and smiled at them both. Merry Christmas, Uncle Aizawa and Nizu. He had jumped on Aizawa's lap, who looked at him and smiled. He rubbed Izuku's head. Merry Christmas, energetic problem child. He was blinded by the flash of Toshinori's camera. Nizu looked confused. What's Christmas? They all looked at him like he was SUS. What? The 25th to me is called mercy. He looked at the readers with an evil smile. They ignored the evil rat and started to open presents. Izuku started first because of him being the youngest. He opened the first one from Aizawa. It was a personal sleeping bag. It also had tutorials from Aizawa on how to use it. The secret power of THR sleeping bag. Next was from Nizu and it was a book that was called How to Blackmail Someone for Beginners. He looked confused and Toshinori faceplaned with his smile and Aizawa fell asleep. Next, what from his dad? It was the limited edition All Might figure that were only 10 known to man. A fine addition to my collection, he said about it. Next was from Gran Torino. It was a training kit for fast and effective kicks. The final he wanted to open, he kinda has a lot, was from David and Melissa's shield. It was a little workshop, so he could create his own gear. Of course he had a gift to Rabenda and that was catnip, basically catweed. Aizawa woke up and saw what happened. He slightly smiled, not at the scene but what Rabenda will do next. Turns out they went to a party. It was for all the pro heroes, and Izuku met a lot of them. Let's just say that he was spoilt that day. Then he traveled to his mindscape to see the others for Christmas. Hagoromo was the first he found. Turns out he had something for him, and it was a limited edition plushie of Kurama. He was silver, that's why. Indra was next and gave him a new move. The Chidori. He used it quite a bit as Sasuke so he could use it. Ashura gave him a full-length tutorial on Talk no Jutsu. The tailed beasts all got him to learn the tailed beast bomb. So Christmas was usual for Izuku and for Izumi, and that, well, she got a letter. Naughty bitches like you don't get anything, you ungrateful piece of. From Santa and Jesus. Henshiki looked amused by the number one hero. Not every day a nobody, in his eyes, had the guts to stand up to him. He then had an idea. The power the boy had, he will draw it out. No matter what, he came for a fight and he will get it. Izuku looked on. He couldn't bear the thought of losing his dad cause of his stupidity. He wanted to move, he wanted to fight, but just couldn't. Son. He heard his dad speak. No matter what, keep that smile on your face. If you let it go, it shows you have given up and lost hope. His eyes now had a glowing blue, as the Otsutsuki smile grew wider. No matter what, it proves that you are willing to fight those who are far ahead of you. It shows the heart of true hero. Stop this useless chatter, Henshiki said with a bored look. And fight already. All Might seemed to think carefully. The cockiness of this man would mean that he could get a well-placed blow on his opponent. And it came to him, he would allow himself to get hit so that he can get a feel for power. He doesn't need to go full power yet, just enough that it would later surprise the Otsutsuki when his full power is out. He rushed forwards, and within that second, placed a punch at Henshiki's stomach. The impact making the male cough up some blood as he was launched backwards. Before he could hit the wall, All Might had already arrived with a Detroit smash, hitting him again, forming a small crater of where they were. Henshiki was having a hard time thinking what had happened, but he was mad. I am possible, Henshiki thought. How can a lowly human make me bleed? His thoughts were cut off by another punch, sending him far off, going through 2 buildings, while he looked to be on a ping-pong table. Colliding into many things, bouncing off of them. Izuku looked on, shocked and amazed. He never fought his dad, so this was all new. Aizu. Kaiyun appeared next to him, looking down. Are you okay? She got to his level and checked on him. She saw his eyes, regret and foolishness rushing through them. She gently held his face as she kissed his cheek. You didn't know about the consequences, either did I or anyone else. She spoke to him as he just lay there. She infused her chakra into him, shocking him more. Don't look shocked, you're more powerful than me. No doubt of that, you need to fight or this world will die and so will everyone on it. You fight for us. She smiled at him, trying to get him to think. When we first met, I was like my dad. But you spoke to me and made me reconsider what I was doing. You made me feel like someone for the first time in MH life. I don't want to lose you. I want to be with you forever. She kissed him again as Izuku thought to himself. They both heard a large explosion, stopping their little session, as they saw Henshiki in the sky, his face slightly bloodied and him screaming in anger. How dare such a low life do this? I will end you, end you, end you. He put his arms together and shouted. Suffer for eternity, Shirkei. The sky turned to black as a large amount of lighting came crashing down. It hit and vaporized what it touched. All Might simply rushed towards him and punched him in the face, disturbing the jutsu, and it stopped. Henshiki slightly moved back, but his anger still etched onto his face. Damn human! He screamed out and exploded into a large red chakra explosion. I will kill everyone you love. I will make sure you suffer forever. His face slowly turned into a smile as he grew a pair of horns that curved around his face, his teeth becoming sharp, and he grew larger and bulky. He let out a scream that sounded like beasts, blowing everything back, making Izuku just be able to put a shield in front of him, and Kaiyun. All Might was able to get behind something that stopped it. What do you think, human? His voice deeper as his hands were put together. What do you think of level 2? He said before appearing behind the blonde hero and smacking him into the ground. A crater forming under All Might, before getting punched repeatedly. He put his hand up and a red orb appeared as he threw it towards him. Be dust at my boots, Nikigo Okai Tai. He threw it towards him, the chakra expanding into a large orb. He laughed out loud. All Might smiled. He now needed to go full power. His muscles stretched out and became larger. He was ready to face it, before it was launched away. Henshiki looked at Izuku, who was on his feet. "Oh, you finally get up." He sneered and pointed a finger at him. He was stopped by a punch from the number 1 hero, sending him backwards, stopping the attack he was forming. "I don't want to fight," Izuku said truthfully. Henshiki heard and his anger grew. "I don't want to fight someone who can't fight himself," Izuku said, Kayun behind him, looking worried for what Izuku was planning. However, Izuku wasn't fazed at all. "What do you mean?" Henshiki asked, standing before him. His eyes glowed with hatred. The one thing he hated more than anything was people claiming something about him he didn't believe. "You let your own power corrupt you, you let your pride get the better of you. You're not Henshiki. You're just a husk who he was," Izuku told him to his face. The man looked at him carefully. "But I will fight, and I will bring Henshiki back," he said with a small smile. Henshiki looked on as he balled up his fist. "Give up," Henshiki simply said to him with a disappointed look. "That is impossible, and I am the true Henshiki." He started, still wondering what he could mean. "Baka!" He looked offended. "I don't know if you have ever heard these words before. I never give up, that's my ninja way," he said definitely and with pride. "I am the last of the shinobi, my ancestors, predecessor and fellow shinobi all died, gave up their lives for this world. I will not just allow you to ruin this world." Henshiki started to laugh. Pathetic was all he thought. How many times had he heard the same things? "Oh please. My ninja way," he spat out with him holding his stomach. "You looked so defeated earlier. What you gonna do? Tickle me?" He laughed, almost unable to stand properly. He saw Izuku smile before a large amount of chakra started to build up in him. Henshiki's eyes widened as Izuku's skin turned pale, becoming his Sage of Six Paths form. "Say all you wanted was a fight?" Izuku asked, his eyes now being the Rinne Tensigen. Henshiki looked impressed by the combination. "You could have asked, you know? But you came to my planet, nearly killed my girlfriend, attacked innocent people, and attempted to kill my dad." One of the orbs behind him reshaped itself into a staff, which Izuku grabbed onto. "I'll make sure to send you to Kaguya." Henshiki looked pissed at the mention of her and he tried to punch Izuku, but he avoided him, smacking him in the face with his staff, making him spin before landing on the ground. Henshiki got up with a pissed expression. "That was one lucky hit. You're still too weak to beat me. That form should only last around 10 minutes. You can't win," he said, but Izuku lifted his hand, before a Rasen gun appeared in his hand. "Are you even listening to me? HN. What the foo?" Before he could finish, he was hit in the stomach by the Rasen gun. Henshiki was shocked, but he couldn't react when he saw something he would thought HW would never see. Izuku pulled his arm around Kayun's waist and pointed at Henshiki. "Told you." He smirked at him. The Otsutsuki was pissed beyond belief, and before long tried to kill him, but was sent to the building, sat in a chair before going through it. He had the chair. "This is going to be good," he thought, getting ready to continue the fight. "You have power, brat. I'll give you that. But I am still your superior." He hissed at the blonde male who appeared before him, trying to strike with a kunai covered in lavarials, though he grabbed his arm and threw him over his shoulder, though he didn't realize the tag on his shoulder, so Izuku reappeared, kicking him square in the face. "If you're so strong, then prove it to me." A smile appeared around Henshiki's face, before he placed his hands on the ground. "Deconstruction release," he said silently, before the whole city became enveloped in a black substance and broke down. "Repurpose." All the material came together, becoming a huge truth-seeker orb. "Shit," Izuku quickly said, using all of his own to match the size and counteract it, though left himself open, with Henshiki using his devil eye. An eye that he has yet to show its abilities. "Kaosukuro," he muttered, low enough so his opponent wouldn't hear. Hanashiki was different to his clan due to him actually learning other species' way of using chakra and creating his own variants. As Izuku looked back at his opponent, chest was slashed through his cloak and blood flew out, and his wound didn't heal. He looked shocked, but Hanashiki smirked. "My chakra is different to Kaguya's. In every sense evil in your human ways," he boasted with glee. "Mine completely shatters others and ruins networks. My brother lost the ability to use his Byakugan due to me." He seemed really proud at his work when saying it as Izuku deadpanned. "Your obsession with your brother is weird." "What brat?" "Well, first mom." "Who?" "Kaguya." Hanashiki just floated there for a second before shaking his head. How many kids did she have here? No, I have the chakra of her sons, also her grandsons. I met her a week ago. Flashback. Wait, so you're saying that I created the divine tree in my mind and Kaguya has a link to me now? Izuku asked with a confused smile. Hagoromo sighed while Hamura chased a butterfly. Ashura was too busy pestering Indra, who in turn ran a fist across his face. Pretty much, was all Hagoromo said. Seeing Izuku blink, he sighed. You know the Jubi was used to reborn Kaguya through Madara? Izuku nodded quickly. Well, she was able to produce a connection. So at any time she could summon you to a place to talk. Behave though, she would probably kill you. She can't be that bad. Yes, she's worse. Really? She sacrificed my girlfriend to a tree. That's pretty messed up. There is no amount of therapy I can have that can get those out of memories out of mind. Especially when I awaken my Sharingan and accidentally engraved into my memory. Crazy alien MILF rabbit lady. Was all Izuku said, though for some reason his surroundings changed. He blinked before sensing an ominous aura from behind him. He slowly looked back to see a woman staring him down with her Byakugan. She looked at him for a few seconds before speaking. What did you call me? Was all she asked, seeing him laugh nervously. Let's not worry about that, shall we? He asked, feeling the area become heavy. He reached her hand out and placed a hand on his cheek. She looked dead serious before tears fell from her eyes. Hagoromo, Hamura. Was all she said. He looked around in the awkward moment. Indra, Ashura. He made his eyes do a perfect imitation of wheel. I will kill you. She muttered, stopped crying, and a bone came out of her. Wait, he said quickly. I'm Izuku. Izuku Yagi at your service, he said with a huge smile. She blinked for a few seconds before the bone returned. But then they reside in you. That sounds dirty. I hope you don't mean anything disgusting. You're not my mom. What? She then smacked him on the head. He was shocked, and she then looked into his memories to see what happened. To say she was shocked was an understatement. Why can humans be so cruel? Was all she said. Well, you did try to kill your sons, sacrifice your eldest son's own girlfriend to a tree and forced him to kill his brother. Kaguya simply blinked before she let out a groan. You also went up to my ex and said you banged his daughter? She stated with a neutral face. Well, your ex is a huge ass. He hurt his own daughter for being a better person than he was. Kaguya hummed. She didn't feel the anger anymore and felt bored after the amount of time being sealed for the second time. In all honesty, she was very bored. Then you shall call me your mother. Izuku was stunned for a second. He believed he was currently in a genjutsu from his brothers to punish him. What's wrong? This is real. He looked at her for a second before deciding one test. What do you think my favorite color is? I think you like violet. Izuku blinked and went to another question. My favorite food? Ramen or possibly katsudan. She replied causally as a tear formed in his eye. HN? You can be my mom. You're already better than my biological. She ruffled his hair before hugging him. Izuku didn't know how to speak at the moment. A mother. The one thing he hated the sound of, having to remember her. But she spoke to him and said HN. She had to be a good mother. Expect if she sacrifices Kayun to a tree, then there would be issues. There, Izu. I will not sacrifice her to a tree. How did you know? I transported you someone while technically being in your mind still. Izuku sighed at and sat down. If I look at the family tree, Alabama would be proud. You know, trying to be a villain here. Hanshiki shouted, pissed at being ignored until he started to hear main character theme. Oh no. It's time to get a little HNNNN. Before Hanshiki could respond, he was sent to space, before spiraling into Mars and then some ending up on Jupiter. Hanshiki couldn't believe it before seeing Izuku above him. He tried to get him, but well. Before his eyes widened in pure fear. Izuku had his hands together. Hidden Leaf Jutsu. 1,000 years of death. Hanshiki screamed to a heaven above heaven. In heaven. Kakashi was looking with pride as Guy was screaming about how hip and cool he was. Back to the fight. Is it weird to say I have penetrated both father and daughter now? He asked himself, and his enemy was running circles into the ground. What evil, sadistic asshole would create such a move? He screamed before seeing Izuku above him. Okay. You win. Not being fooled. By the way, for even fucking daring to try and murder Kayun. You better hope hell has 5 extra hells, he said before launching his hand in the air, using all elements to form a fist. Then portals formed around Henshiki as he looked shocked. Izuku thought while smiling. Hope you don't mind, Dad. Detroit Elemental Barrage Smash. Oh no. He was fucked. And that is why we celebrate New Year's. Izuku was telling Kayun, who looked super confused until realizing something else. So you celebrate the world getting a year older? She asked in confusion, making Izuku rethink that point. Well, I guess. Kayun before looking into his eyes. So we are going to do that thing I have wanted to do for a while. Apparently, all the girls in our year are going to do it. Izuku's face slowly morphed into one of despair and ran out of the room, wallet intact. You can't hide from me. But I can run, he shouted back, running into his dad who enjoying preparing for his speech for the new year. When hitting into his dad, they both fell to the floor and rolled over to the door before Izuku was flung out. What just happened? Was all Toshinori could think. Kayun jumped over him, chasing after him. Oh, shopping. Izuku, run for your life. Your money is going to vanish if she gets you. He tried to warn his son, who appeared to notice. Thank you? Izuku responded before running into Yue's gates, hitting his head. He slowly turned back and saw Kayun there. It's just shopping. It was one of the first things we did together. She said, a bit sad, and knew that Izuku would give in to that. At the moment, Izuku was shaking in his boots. Nico, she said with puppy eyes, and Izuku had his face covered in sweat. Think, Izuku. You know what? Fuck it. I will have to endure for now. Wish me luck, guys. As he said that, he could hear all the tail beats making bets on how much will be spent. He sighed in defeat. So we are meeting up with them and going shopping? She nodded quickly. Then we should turn it into a date. Right, my little fox. He said the last part in her ear, and she nodded quickly, a little red on her face. Also, then we can watch a movie. I heard of this super cool movie that came out. Izuku nodded, a smile forming on his face. Well then, let's go now. She jumped onto his back, and he ran to the location. Yes, Naruto ran with someone on his back. Are they going to be there? Sadly. Fine. I think I need to get over the grudge anyway. I resent them for it, yeah? But to keep that forever will hinder me. Plus, it proves them right. What do you mean, Nico? Kayun was confused by this for sure. Izuku talking about them in this way is definitely different. Well, a hero is supposed to be able to have a smile on their face no matter what and save as many people. Hate is usually something that brings that down. If I want to be the guardian of this planet, I need to get over this. Kayun nodded to herself before resting her head on his shoulder. He decided to go normal speed, for a human. He wanted to enjoy their time together. What about your former mom? Not yet. She doesn't deserve it. She giggled to that. Maybe he doesn't change much from things. As they were getting there, a child ran out of an alleyway, almost scared for her life. Kayun and Izuku looked at each other. Nodded. As Overhaul was getting out, he got his kicked by Izuku and Kayun, like, it's not funny. To sum it up, Overhaul ain't doing shit ever again. She has a horn, and white hair and red eyes. Kayun thought with a squeal. She got pass off as our daughter. Both Izuku and Kayun walked up to Kid, who slowly backed away. But she hit a wall and looked terrified at them. That was before Izuku did a summoning jutsu and Kurama came out. Now, he would shout at Izuku, but instead did what he needed to do. Comfort animal. He walked up to the child and she soon grabbed him and held him close. She looked more willing now. Hey there, Kayun said, a gentle smile on her lips. The bad guy is down. We made sure he can't harm you. She told her, making the girl look shocked, her eyes glowing. Really? Her voice sounded strained and rough, so Izuku made a water jutsu that conveniently makes it drink. He offered and she took the chance. Tea, thank you? She didn't stare them in the eyes, instead pulling Kurama closer, who rubbed his head on hers. Hey. Izuku got closer and got on one knee. He looked at her before giving his best smile, basically Naruto's smile. Do you want to come with us? He offered a hand, and she took it carefully. A warm green glow came out, healing her arms and making her shocked. She was on the verge of tears. Kayun joined them and pulled the field into a hug. The girl soon went into a sobbing mess, repeating thank you over and over. She felt so safe with them that she accidentally said, Thank you, Mommy. She didn't realize, but Izuku saw Kaiyun explode into pure happiness by the name. That's right. Your super parents saved you. She needs to stop watching those shows. Izuku's sweat dropped, but joined in. Yeah. And we're going to be the greatest parents to ever exist. Believe it, the girl cried harder and looked happy in Kaiyun's arms. Then they heard someone come near and looked to see the number 3 hero. Hawks looked over at Overhaul, then them helping the girl. He flashed them a thumbs up and a smile, not saying a word before taking the villain away. Eri soon fell asleep in Kaiyun's arms and both looked at each other before smiling. First food, clothes, and then adoption papers. Both nodded, picked up Kaiyun, who was holding Eri, who was holding a sleeping Kurama. Did she just domesticate Kurama? Was all Izuku thought. They went to the closet place that did food, Eri waking up and seeing that it wasn't a dream. Morning. Kaiyun thought for a second before. What is your name, Sweaty? Eri. Eri Yagi sounds good to me. Izuku said, making Eri's eyes widen before smiling, making both think that they had a heart attack before going to reality. While that was happening, Hawks turned Overhaul in. He made sure to give a warning about adoption papers to the police officer, who understood and got that ready. So we're to Nico? Izuku looked and smiled at it. Ramen. Kaiyun smiled with Eri, confused, but then feeling Kurama in her arms, curled into a ball, and she snuggled into him and rested. Both Izuku and Kaiyun took pictures with shadow clones. They arrived to the mythical location. See, if you say the magical words Databao, ramen guy will appear with ramen for you to eat. And that's how they got it. Perfect, isn't it? Eri looked at the food and went to touch it, however, Kaiyun immediately stopped her and gave her chopsticks. Eri tried to use them, but found it hard. So Kaiyun spent some time feeding her. Izuku protecting his from Kurama, since he was in Naruto and Kushina and built an addiction. After this time spent, they arrived to the test of class to do what was needed. Eri was on his shoulders, sitting down. Kaiyun was walking Kurama like a dog. When they arrived, their class saw them. Izabro! Garashima ran up, having a big smile on his face. He saw Eri and whispered to Izuku. You guys had a kid this whole time? Nope. Just saved her actually. Izuku responded, drawing a bunny and watching Eri play with the ink rabbit. Deku! Bakugo shouted, however, he didn't get a response. Actually, Kaiyun realized Kurama and he went wild. So while everyone is having a fun time, Bakugo is running for his life. Wow. Nice cat. Denki said, getting a slap from Jiraiya cause of his stupidity. It's a fox, with 9 tails. She answered with him looking and nodding. So like the Pokemon? Jiraiya gave up and just nodded. Kaiyun. Said Alien, turned to Momo, who was looking at her with shock. Did you and Izuku ever? You know. We have, but never had a child. She's my adopted daughter. Momo nodded as a certain group of girls, part of the REE squad, had a mental breakdown at that. And that concludes it, because you can use your imagination for the rest. That's it, guys. Thanks for watching and supporting us. Until the author add more chapters. Take care.